Chapter 2493. In the heart of North Underworld Mountain, Demon Holy City. It was noon, but the huge holy city was shrouded in black clouds and was deathly silent. A year ago, the holy city was rebuilt. More than 800,000 demons gathered in the holy city and worked hard to revive the demon race. Later, the major tribes selected nearly 1 million demon warriors to come to the holy city to reinforce the front line. However, with the defeat of the demon race army in the death of the ancestor demon god and Ling Xian, the holy city became extremely desolate. Without the protection of leaders and experts, the demon race became a pile of loose sand without any cohesion. More than half of the 1 million demons in the holy city had left one after another. A small number hid in deserted places, while the majority returned to their respective tribes. Only 700,000 or so demons remained in the holy city, quietly lying dormant. They still had the illusion that the humans could not counterattack North Underworld Mountain. Or that the humans were busy fighting for power and rebuilding their homeland, and did not have the time to seek revenge. As long as they were allowed to rest for a few decades, they would be able to nurture new leaders and revive the demon race. However, with the arrival of Ji Tianqing, all of this would end. Ji Tianqing appeared in the sky above the holy city, in the middle of the black clouds, looking down at the holy city that was 100 miles wide. The surging demon Qi could not corrode his divine body and had no effect on him. He expressionlessly raised his palms, activated the surging divine power, and sent out 2 giant golden palms that blotted out the sky. The sudden appearance of the giant golden palms dispelled the demon Qi and darkness, like the scorching sun in the sky. The area within 1,000 miles was filled with dazzling golden light, sacred and glorious. The hundreds of thousands of demons hiding in the holy city were awakened by the sacred golden light. Feeling the terrifying divine might descend, everyone was terrified and filled with despair. But they could do nothing, and they did not have time to escape. The next moment, the 2 giant golden palms slammed into the holy city, covering an area of 200 miles. Boom! With a loud explosion that shook the 9 heavens, the holy city was instantly reduced to ruins, and smoke and dust filled the sky. The ground within 1,000 miles trembled violently, and countless ravines opened up. 95% of the hundreds of thousands of demons in the holy city were killed on the spot. Only the demons who were hiding in underground secret rooms and caverns, protected by powerful formations, could survive. Of course, Ji Tianqing's divine sense swept across the 200 miles of ruins and clearly detected the injured survivors. He raised his hands again and made a hand seal to activate the heavenly fire. Above the firmament, a loud rumbling sound immediately resounded. Endless dark red heavenly flames poured down like a flood and drowned the ruins of the holy city. Instantly, the ground within a few hundred miles was scorched, and dark red lava surged out and flowed wantonly. Those demons hiding underground were immediately reduced to ashes. Ji Tianqing withdrew his cold gaze and turned to leave expressionlessly. A moment later, Ji Tianqing appeared above Baiming Palace. The Baiming Palace, which had been rebuilt a year ago, stood at the peak of the towering mountain, looking gloomy and solemn. This was the holy land of the demon race, and also the highest ruling center. Back then, when the ancestral demon god occupied this place, the entire demon race was filled with ambition. Inside Baiming Palace, there were 3,000 guards and 300 elites, as well as several dozen deacons and messengers. However, in the last 2 months, the demon race was leaderless, and their morale was very low. Nearly half of the guards secretly fled Baiming Palace and returned to their tribes. Only a little more than 1,000 remained, silently waiting for a new leader to appear. Just now, Ji Tianqing used a secret technique to destroy the holy city of the demon race. Baiming Palace was only a little more than 1,000 miles from the holy city, so it was naturally affected. The towering mountain violently shook several dozen times. Many demons saw 2 giant golden palms and a heavenly fire that blotted out the sky. The news quickly spread in the Baiming Palace, causing many demons to be in an uproar. They all fled in panic. When Ji Tianqing arrived at Baiming Palace, he just happened to see Baiming Palace in chaos. More than 1,000 demon experts and guards were fleeing in all directions in a panic. Without hesitation, Ji Tianqing raised his palms and slammed them down. Kaboom! Another 2 giant golden palms the size of mountains fell down like golden suns, shattering Baiming Palace and the entire mountain. Endless rocks and dust flew out, covering the sky for several hundred miles. 80% of the demon guards and experts were killed by the giant golden palms. Those who were lucky enough to survive were injured by the violent shockwaves, falling into the ruins covered in blood. Ji Tianqing waved his sleeve and shot out a dazzling 5-colored divine lightning at the vast ruins. Boom 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 boom. The 5-colored divine lightning split into 1,000 lightning pillars and struck the surviving demons. Thus, everyone was reduced to ashes and scattered ashes. Ji Tianqing's gaze passed through the ruins and looked behind Baiming Palace. There was a deep abyss there, 50 miles wide, shrouded in pitch-black demon qi. The abyss flickered with dark red light, and a poisonous bloody mist constantly poured out. Without a doubt, that was the lair of the ancestral demon god, the place where he had been in seclusion for the past 8 years, the infamous Blood Sea Abyss. Ji Tianqing strode across the sky and arrived above the Blood Sea Abyss. He released his divine sense into the abyss and saw a bottomless purple-black blood sea. It was formed from the blood essence of billions of living beings and humans. It was the evilest place in the world. Suddenly, Ji Tianqing's divine sense detected that there were several hundred demons in the depths of the blood sea, cultivating. Most of them were young demon geniuses, and a small number were older experts. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a cold light, and the corner of his mouth hooked up in a cold smile. On one hand, they are nurturing young geniuses to become future pillars of strength. On the other hand, they are nurturing older experts to choose a new leader. The demon race really refuses to give up on their evil intentions. They still want to recuperate and make a comeback. Ji Tianqing muttered a few words, then slowly raised his palms and activated the power of the heaven-mending orb, releasing a divine white light that covered the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 enormous pillars of blazing white light shot out from his palms, reaching into the blood sea abyss. Instantly, the demonic mist and formation that shrouded the blood sea abyss were dispersed by the blazing white light pillars. When the purple-black blood sea encountered the divine white light, it was like snow under the scorching sun, dissipating at a visible speed. The blood sea abyss shook violently, stirring up surging waves of blood, waking up several hundred demons that were cultivating. The demon clansmen panicked. They hurriedly ran out of the blood sea, trying to escape from the abyss. However, they were all engulfed by the divine white light, and quickly turned to dust. Ji Tianqing continued to release the divine white light, and the purple-black blood sea abyss was also quickly dissolving. After an entire hour, the blood sea abyss, which was dozens of kilometers deep, and the mountain of white bones at the bottom of the abyss were all purified by the divine white light. The evil demonic energy and blood-soul power were all dispersed. Ji Tianqing then used the dragon-elephant divine fist, blasting the abyss into pieces. After completely destroying the blood sea abyss, he turned and left. Chapter 2494. Destroying the holy city, Baiming Palace, and the blood sea abyss was only the first step of Ji Tianqing's plan. For the next 2 months, he was active in Baiming Mountain. His target was the 600 or so most powerful tribes of the demon race. These tribes had deep foundations, and their populations were at least 100,000. The dozen or so most powerful tribes had populations of over 1 million, and they had built their own cities. These were the backbone of the demon race, and every year, they could cultivate a large number of elite warriors and experts. If these tribes were not eliminated, a few demon saints and a large number of experts would be born in at most a few decades. In these 2 months, Ji Tianqing spent every day on the road and slaughtering, without any time to rest. He constantly searched for one tribe after another, and used earth-shattering methods to destroy the entire tribe. Then, without stopping to rest, he rushed to the next tribe and continued his slaughter. Although the targets of his slaughter were the inhumane, cruel, and tyrannical demons. But if it were an ordinary martial god, it would be very difficult for them to have such unswerving determination and courage. In a short 2 months, he had slaughtered nearly 200 million demons. He would definitely feel tired and annoyed. He might even be unable to bear it, and develop a heart demon. But Ji Tianqing was different. His hatred for the demon race was deep in his bones and soul. If he did not thoroughly eliminate this disaster, it would leave behind a sore point that would affect his future cultivation of the divine path. Moreover, he was once the king of gods who stood at the peak of the starry sky. Destroying a star or a world in the blink of an eye was something that happened all the time. His understanding of heaven and earth and life far surpassed that of ordinary gods. He naturally would not blame himself for this matter, and would not be soft-hearted. That evening, Ji Tianqing left Baiming Mountain. He stood at the peak of the Sea of Clouds, bathed in the dusky sunset, and revealed an expression of relief. More than 600 powerful demon tribes have been destroyed by my own hands. From now on, the demon race will only have 3,000 weak tribes left, and they will no longer be able to stir up trouble and harm the various races of the continent. This sore point has finally been eliminated, and it is enough to comfort the 1 billion living beings who died under the demon's blade. He had slaughtered 200 million demons, which was equivalent to cutting down half of the demon race's population. This was absolutely a disaster for the demon race. Unfortunately, the Dark North Mountain was too big. If he wanted to get rid of the remaining 200 million demons, it would take him at least a year. He didn't want to waste time on these trivial matters, so he decided to leave the finishing work to the martial artists of the continent. From today onwards, the North Underworld Mountain will no longer be a forbidden area feared by all races. Instead, it will be a rather dangerous training ground. Martial practitioners of various races who wanted to explore and gain experience could do so at North Underworld Mountain. If the armies and guards of the various divine kingdoms wanted to train their troops in actual combat, they could also do so at Dark North Mountain. In this way, not only could they continuously weaken the power of the devil race, but they could also temper the strength of the various races' cultivators. Ji Tianqing decided to announce this to the entire Shenwu continent, and they would proceed according to this plan. Only in this way could the demons be completely exterminated. At the very least, they would be able to suppress the demons for tens of thousands of years, preventing them from rising again. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing took out a communication jade slip and sent a message to Yunyao, inquiring about the situation in the Luoshui divine nation. He waited in the Sea of Clouds for a while before receiving Yunyao's reply. Tianqing, after 3 months of hard work, Cope and I have killed more than 900 soldiers of the Heavens Crusaders. According to our estimates, there are around 1,000 soldiers of the Heavens Crusaders in the Luoshui divine nation. Only a few dozen of them received the news in advance and quietly escaped. In addition, I've already gathered the 3 sage emperors, as well as over 1,000 city lords and leaders of various powers. They are all former subordinates of the divine nation. I'm currently using the power of the divine radiance pearl to remove the soul-controlling technique from their bodies one by one. If we want to restore the Luoshui divine nation's rule and order, we still have a long way to go, and will need at least another year. Yunyao's voice rang out in Ji Tianqing's mind, crisp, clean, and decisive. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment before sending her a message to console her. The destruction of a divine nation is a catastrophe, and it won't be easy to restore order. We're already mentally prepared for this. Fortunately, the Shenwu continent's crisis has been resolved, so you don't have to be anxious. Just proceed as planned. I still have some matters to take care of, so I'll come back to find you in 10 days. After sending Yunyao a message, he then sent a message to Martial God Taihao to ask about the situation in the Heaven End divine nation. After 15 minutes, Martial God Taihao finally replied with a report. 95% of the Heaven's Crusaders in the Heaven End Divine Nation had been killed by Martial God Taihao, and they were currently conducting a final sweep. Roughly 50 or so Heaven's Crusaders had fled the Heaven End Divine Nation in advance, and their whereabouts were unknown. After Ji Tianqing learned of the situation, he instructed Martial God Taihao to continue his sweep and not slack off. Whoosh! His communication jade transformed into a beam of light that disappeared into the horizon. Ji Tianqing stared at the sky and muttered, "There are about 100 surviving Heaven's Crusaders. If 100 martial saints were to gather together, they would be able to destroy half of a divine nation. Fortunately, the Heaven's Crusaders have all become frightened birds, and they've scattered in all directions to hide in various parts of the continent. It will be very difficult for them to gather together in the short term, and they won't dare to cause any trouble." After saying that, he temporarily put this matter aside and summoned the small golden tower. Whoosh! A golden light flashed, and his figure disappeared. The next moment, he returned to the Jyotian 10 Absolutes Tower and appeared on the 5th floor. He did not go to the 6th floor to distort spacetime. Instead, he directly activated the Origin Divine Formation and descended to the 1st floor. Nearly 1,000 disciples of Tianzhu Mountain lived and cultivated here, and they were already used to the environment. After Ji Tianqing descended, Huanglong Daoist sensed his aura and hurriedly rushed out to welcome him. He did not waste any time and immediately ordered, "Huanglong, gather all the disciples at the plaza. Master has an important announcement to make." Huanglong Daoist did not ask any questions and hurriedly went to carry out the order. About a quarter of an hour later, over 1,000 disciples were gathered in the square. Everyone stared at Ji Tianqing respectfully, and their eyes were filled with anticipation. Ji Tianqing looked around and announced in a dignified tone, "Now that the Heaven's Crusaders and the Devil race have been destroyed, the Shenwu continent has regained its peace. Everyone, there is no need to hide here anymore. Immediately return to Tianzhu Mountain and rebuild the sacred land of martial arts. We will spread the might of our sect." This sudden piece of good news was like a bolt from the blue, and it stunned everyone. Everyone was filled with shock, and their eyes widened in disbelief. It was only after a long time that they cheered. No one could believe that the cruel and tyrannical Devil race and the tyrannical Heaven's Crusaders had both been destroyed. And all of this was a miracle created by Ji Tianqing. Everyone was immersed in shock, excitement, and pride. 2 hours later, everyone was ready to leave. Ji Tianqing led everyone out of the tower and returned to the ruins of God. Next, Huanglong Daoist will lead everyone back to Tianzhu Mountain and rebuild the sacred land of martial arts. It has been a long time since I asked for a recommendation vote, so please vote for me. Thank you. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2495. Ji Tianqing was very assured that the matter of rebuilding Tianzhu Mountain would be left to the Huanglong Daoist. He watched as everyone left, and only after they had disappeared into the horizon did he turn around and fly back to the Luoshui Divine Kingdom. 2 days later, he returned to the Luoshui Divine Kingdom and appeared at the ruins of Luoshan Mountain. Back when Ji Tianqing and General Fu Long had fought here, the aftermath of the battle had destroyed Luoshan Mountain, and everything within 500 kilometers had been reduced to ruins. Now, more than 3 months had passed, and Luoshan Mountain had long since been rebuilt. Rows upon rows of palaces had been rebuilt at the peak of the majestic mountain, and it had been restored to its former appearance. When Ji Tianqing saw Yunyao, she was in the study busy with work. One messenger after another entered and left the study in an endless stream, passing down her orders. When she saw that Ji Tianqing had returned, Yunyao hurriedly stopped what she was doing and asked with concern, "Tianqing, you're finally back. Did the operation go smoothly?" Ji Tianqing nodded and explained, "Everything went smoothly. I killed all the soldiers of Tianzhu Mountain and the 72 cities, and only a few managed to escape. In addition, I also destroyed more than 600 powerful tribes in Dark North Mountain. After hearing this news, Yun Yao was both shocked and excited, as if a huge stone had been lifted from her heart. This news is really inspiring. If this news spreads throughout the Shinwu continent, it will definitely cause a huge commotion. Dark North Mountain has suffered such a devastating blow, and they will definitely not be able to recover. They will no longer be able to threaten the safety of the continent's various races. The two sat down and chatted for a while before Yun Yao asked, "Tianqing, the situation on the continent has stabilized, and you are fully deserving of being the strongest powerhouse. What plans do you have for the future?" Tianqing already had the corresponding thoughts and plans in mind, and he answered without hesitation, "The most important thing right now is to stabilize the situation on the continent and allow the people of the various races to recuperate. 2 of the 3 divine masters have fallen, and only martial god Taihao is left. I plan to gather a few martial god realm experts at the ancient gazing platform of the ruins of God in half a month's time to discuss how to divide the factions." Yun Yao understood what he meant. She nodded in agreement and said, "That's good. Only by dividing the sphere of influence can we restore the rule of God nation as soon as possible. Currently, many races and forces on the continent were taking advantage of the chaos to launch wars, invade and expand their territories. Although the scale was not large, it would still cause hundreds or even tens of millions of casualties, and it would continue for a long time. Only by establishing the rule of the divine kingdom can these wars be stopped." Tianqing said calmly, "Continue with your work. I will inform Taihao, the messenger of the ruins of God, and Fairy Yuqing." Yun Yao nodded and said earnestly, "You definitely haven't rested for a moment in the past 3 months. Now that you've returned, you should rest well for a few days." Tianqing agreed and returned to the Cloud Water Palace, not bothering her any longer. He took out a few communication jade slips and sent messages to Taihao, the messenger of the ruins of God, and Fairy Yuqing, explaining his thoughts and plans. Then, he entered the secret chamber to meditate and recuperate. 13 days passed in a flash. After meditating for so long, Tianqing's spirit and strength had recovered to their peak. He ended his cultivation and opened his eyes to see 2 communication jade slips floating beside him. These 2 communication jade slips were sent by the messenger of the ruins of God and Fairy Yuqing. Tianqing picked up the jade slips and used his divine sense to enter them. He quickly read the information inside. A moment later, he put away the communication jade slips and muttered to himself, as expected. He got up and walked out of the secret chamber. He met Ji Ku outside the Cloud Water Palace. Ji Ku looked travel-worn and there was a hint of fatigue between his brows. However, when she saw Tianqing, she hurriedly came over and greeted him with a smile. "Brother Tianqing, you're finally out of seclusion." Tianqing smiled and nodded. He asked with concern, "Cuckoo, I heard from Yao Yao that you've been searching for the surviving soldiers of the Heavens expedition. It's been hard on you these past few months." Ji Ku shook his head and said with a smile, "Compared to what you've done, it's not hard at all." Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "It seems that you already know what happened." "Yes." Ji Ku quickly nodded and explained, "I rushed back this morning. Eldest senior sister told me." After saying that, she held Tianqing's arm and said with a smile, "Let's go and find eldest senior sister. She must be waiting for us." The 2 of them rushed to the study together. Yun Yao had indeed been waiting for a long time. After the 3 of them gathered, they left Luotian Mountain together and flew towards the ruins of God. 2 days later, the 3 of them entered the depths of the ruins of God and arrived at the ancient viewing platform. Martial god Taihao had been waiting here for a long time. The 4 martial gods gathered at the ancient gazing platform, and it was inevitable that they would exchange greetings. After greeting each other, Tianqing began to talk about serious matters. Now that the Heavens expedition has been defeated and the demons have suffered great losses, Shinwu continent is at peace for the time being. Today, we are gathered here to discuss the division of power. Hearing this, Yunyao and Ji Kun nodded slightly. Martial God Taihao looked around and asked doubtfully, Senior, are there only the four of us? Didn't you say that you informed the ruins of God and Fairy Yuqing? Ji Tianqing waved his hand and explained, the two seniors are both experts who are not of this world. They have noble character and unquestionable integrity, and they are not willing to get involved in worldly affairs or power struggles. I see. Martial God Taihao nodded in understanding and smiled. In that case, I'll leave it to you to decide. Ji Tianqing was not modest and directly said, Shenwu continent has just experienced a catastrophe. Billions of citizens have been killed, and tens of billions have been displaced. What we need to do is to stabilize the situation as soon as possible so that the citizens can live and work in peace and recuperate. Therefore, I've decided to maintain the original power structure. The three divine kingdoms will continue to exist, and the original territories will remain unchanged. Taihao Divine Kingdom will remain the same, and Tianjue Divine Kingdom will be managed by me. It will be officially renamed Tianqing Divine Kingdom. As for Luoshui Divine Kingdom, it will be managed by Yunyao. She is the #1 goddess of Luoshui Divine Kingdom and the rightful successor. In addition, I will deal with Tianzhu Mountain and the 72 cities as appropriate. After listening to Ji Tianqing's announcement, Martial God Taihao was stunned. His eyes shone with a strange light, and he said with admiration, Senior, you truly have the world in your heart. You are so righteous that Taihao admires you. From the day he received Ji Tianqing's message, he had already guessed the answer. He thought that Ji Tianqing would definitely unify Tianjue and Luoshui divine kingdoms and merge them with Tianzhu Mountain and the 72 cities. After all, this was the dream of every overlord. However, Taihao had never expected that Ji Tianqing would not be attached to power and the secular world at all, and that he would treat the position of overlord so lightly. If it were Taihao himself, he would not be able to be so carefree. Chapter 2496. Ji Tianqing's words had created a new structure for the Shenwu continent. Doing so would reduce the unrest and chaos as much as possible, allowing the situation to settle down as quickly as possible. Everything was for the sake of the common people. Although they had finished discussing important matters, Martial God Taihao was in no hurry to leave. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze and asked, Senior, news of you destroying Baiming Palace and slaughtering 200 million demons has already spread throughout the continent. Now, all the warriors and commoners see you as their savior, and they've even set up shrines to worship you. With your methods and charisma, you only need to put in a little effort to flatten Baiming Mountain and completely destroy the demons. That way, the various races will truly be at ease. I wonder, why did you hold back and let the remaining demons go? Ji Tianqing glanced at Taihao and smiled. Taihao, this is not just what you want to ask, but also what the leaders of the various races want to know, right? Martial God Taihao smiled and nodded. That's right. The entire continent is talking about this. Ji Tianqing said sincerely, the heavenly Tao is orderly, and nothing can be too extreme. Otherwise, there will be trouble in the future. If I completely destroy the demons, the various races of the continent will have nothing to worry about. After recuperating and developing, there will be internal conflicts and disputes, which will then lead to chaos and war. However, I left half of the demons behind to remind everyone not to forget the disasters and pain brought about by war. We must cherish the peace and tranquility before us. If the various races are powerful but have no place to use their strength, then we can use Baiming Mountain as a training ground to temper ourselves. After hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Martial God Taihao came to a realization, and a look of deep reverence appeared on his face. So that's how it is. Not only will this suppress Baiming Mountain and prevent the demons from rising, but it will also maintain the peace of the various races on the continent. Senior, you've truly put in a lot of thought and thought far ahead for the sake of the continent's peace. On behalf of the 12 billion citizens of the Divine Kingdom, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to you. As he spoke, Martial God Taihao bowed respectfully. Ji Tianqing raised his hand and gestured for him to rise. Then, he said in a serious tone, Taihao, there is one more thing you must remember. Although the Heaven Punisher had been defeated and the demons were no longer a threat, that did not mean that Shenwu continent was safe. In the future, he still could not let down his guard in case the Heaven Punishers made a comeback and General Dragon Subduing came to take revenge. In addition, continue to send people to search for the whereabouts of the heaven-conquering warriors. Try to find the 100 or so survivors and eliminate them all. These words were not only for Martial God Taihao, but also for Yun Yao. Both of them nodded to show that they understood. Following this, they discussed some other matters, all of which were related to the commoners of the world. An hour later, the meeting came to an end. Martial God Taihao bid farewell and left. Yun Yao and Ji Ku returned to the Luo River God Nation while Ji Tianqing rushed to the Heaven Extinction God Nation. For the next half a year, the four martial gods were busy and had almost no time to rest. Martial God Taihao was busy searching for and hunting down the heaven-conquering warriors. He had mobilized hundreds of thousands of divine guards and nearly 100,000 elite scouts. He personally went into action, so the results were naturally outstanding. Within half a year, he had killed more than 80 heaven-conquering warriors. The remaining 30 or so heaven-conquering warriors scattered around the continent and hid in uninhabited places, not daring to show their faces again. With Ji Ku's help, Yun Yao regained control of the Luo River God Nation. At the peak of the Luo River God Mountain, Yun Yao announced to the world that she would inherit the position of Divine Master and protect all the people of the Luo River God Nation. After inheriting the position, she selected 6 new emperors. In addition to the previous 3 divine emperors, the 9 of them each ruled the 9 great empires. Although the empires were destroyed by the flames of war, the people of the Luo River God Nation were happy. However, the people of the Divine Nation were overjoyed. They respected and supported Yun Yao greatly. Hundreds of millions of people invested in the reconstruction work. They were full of enthusiasm and were full of anticipation for the future. In this way, the Luo River God Nation's recovery speed increased. On the other side, Ji Tianqing was also very busy in the Heaven Extinction God Nation. He was overseeing the Heaven Extinction Peak, announcing to the world that he was the Divine Master and controlling the Tianqing God Nation. After that, he gathered countless city lords, generals, and faction leaders who had been controlled and removed the soul control technique from them in batches. Just this one matter alone had taken him 4 months of his time. After that, he selected new divine emperors to suppress the chaos in the various empires. After half a year, he finally stabilized the situation in the Tianqing God Nation and allowed the various empires to recuperate. At this point, the Shenwu continent's new structure had been established, and everything was on the right track. It was worth mentioning that the Boundless God Nation used to be the weakest of the 3 divine nations. But now, the Divine Kingdom of Taihao had become the most powerful divine kingdom. On this night, the moon hung high in the sky. Within the palace on Heaven Extinction Peak, the study was lit. Ji Tianqing was bent over his desk, focused on handling government affairs. At this time, someone suddenly came to the study and knocked on the door. Ji Tianqing immediately looked up and frowned at the door. All this time, anyone who entered the study would report to the Divine Master, and they would only be allowed to enter after receiving permission. No one had ever dared to knock on the door directly, as that would be an affront to the Divine Master's authority. However, when Ji Tianqing saw the figure at the door, he was stunned. Yao Yao. Why are you here? His brows immediately relaxed, and a gentle smile appeared on his face. There was no doubt that this person was Yun Yao. She was wearing a long white dress and an incomparably luxurious jade crown. She walked into the study and came to Ji Tianqing's side. I guessed that you would be unusually busy recently, so I didn't send a message in advance. I secretly came to visit you tonight. If I had known that the situation in the Heaven Extinction Divine Nation would be even more complicated, I would have asked Cuckoo to help you. As she spoke, Yunyao walked behind him and reached out to massage his shoulders and neck. Ji Tianqing leaned back in his large chair and closed his eyes in satisfaction. He smiled and said, "You are pregnant, so you can't overwork yourself. Cuckoo will naturally be by your side to help you. By the way, why did you suddenly come here tonight? It's not just to see me, right?" Yunyao nodded and said in a serious tone, "There is indeed a very important matter that I have to discuss with you face to face. Currently, only Cuckoo and I know about it." "What is it?" Ji Tianqing suddenly opened his eyes, and his eyes lit up. Yunyao took out a black stone the size of a fist and placed it in front of him. She explained, "Previously, when Ku was chasing after the Heaven's Conqueror, she killed a commander and seized some spoils of war. She found this strange stone. Cuckoo and I have studied it carefully. This stone is very strange. It looks ordinary, but it contains a lot of divine power. Moreover, this stone seems to contain the power of space." Ji Tianqing took the strange black stone and observed it carefully for a moment. He immediately frowned and revealed a look of reminiscence. Chapter 2497. I think I've seen this black stone somewhere before. Ji Tianqing held the strange black stone with both hands and frowned as he muttered to himself. He thought for a moment and immediately recalled the scene when he had killed Ling Xian. Ling Xian's final struggle had turned into purple flames and fallen demonic qi, but it had been purified by the divine light. After that, a fist-sized black stone had fallen from the sky. Ji Tianqing knew that it was Ling Xian's remnant, and he had immediately grabbed it and placed it in his spatial ring after taking a look at it. He had thought that he would study that black stone when he had the time in the future. Who would have thought that too many things had happened, causing him to forget about that stone? Now that Yunyao had brought it up, he finally recalled it. Thus, he rummaged through his interspatial ring for a while and found the piece of black stone. The two black stones were placed side by side, and their appearance and aura were exactly the same. Ji Tianqing frowned and said, "I also have a black stone like this. I obtained it after killing Ling Xian." Yunyao nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, "They are indeed the same." "Oh right, Tianqing, do you still remember the scene when we surrounded General Fu Long? At that time, I used the Grand Qinkuan sword and severely injured General Fu Long. He took out a black stone and crazily absorbed its power before taking out a disc-shaped divine weapon. With the support of that black stone, the disc-shaped divine weapon exploded with terrifying power and escaped through the world seal." After Yunyao's reminder, Ji Tianqing immediately recalled that scene. "That's right. General Fu Long also has a black stone like this. He relied on the power of this black stone to escape from the five elements realm." At this point, Ji Tianqing stared at the black stone in his hands and said with a burning gaze, "If that's the case, this stone can be used by the martial god to cultivate, and its effects are even stronger than ordinary divine stones." Ji Tianqing was very clear that divine stones were the most common cultivation resource in the god realm, and every god could not do without them. However, on the Shenwu continent, divine stones were extremely rare. At the very least, the three divine masters had never obtained a divine stone, and Ji Tianqing had never found one. As for the two black stones in his hands, not only were they filled with divine power like divine stones, they also contained powerful spatial energy. Not to mention martial gods, even true gods and heavenly gods would scramble madly for this kind of black stone. If one could have a large number of black stones to aid in one's cultivation, even a deity would be able to quickly increase his strength. From this, it could be seen how precious these two black stones were. Ji Tianqing put the two black stones on the table. He stared at Yunyao and asked seriously, "Yao Yao, have you and Ku found any clues?" Yunyao hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "I did get some information, but it's far from enough. Ku said with certainty that this black stone is a kind of divine stone, but it is more precious than ordinary divine stones, and its effects are more powerful. Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement. Indeed. Back when I was in the God realm and the Dragon realm, I never came across such a divine stone. Could it be that General Fu Long brought it from the Heaven Punisher tribe? Yun Yao hurriedly shook her head and explained, no. Ku used a secret soul-searching technique to strip the memories of a Heaven Punisher. She told me with certainty that this black stone does not belong to the Heaven Punisher tribe, but was mine from the Shenwu continent. Ji Tianqing's pupils shrank when he heard this, and he revealed a look of deep shock. Mine from the Shenwu continent? How is that possible? The Shenwu continent is just a mortal world, and it doesn't even have ordinary divine stones. How could it have such a black stone? Yun Yao nodded and said with a complicated expression, I also feel that this is illogical, but Ku would never lie, so I could only come to you. Ji Tianqing was silent for a long time before he sighed faintly. Back then, I stayed in this world for too short a time, and there were many places that I did not go, let alone understand the five elements realm. Now that I think about it, there might be many unknown secrets hidden in this world. Yun Yao patted his shoulder and comforted him. This world is not ordinary. Otherwise, why would it have been sealed by the gods? Alright, don't think too much about it. Let's think about how to investigate the source of this black stone. Now that we have reached the martial god realm, the progress of our strength has become very slow. If we can find more black stones, we can become stronger even faster. Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a low voice, that's right. General Fu Long has seen the mysterious effects of this black stone, and he will definitely not give up on such a divine item. I'm almost certain that he will rally his forces and bring a large number of powerhouses back. Thus, we need to increase our strength as quickly as possible so that we can resist General Fu Long's counterattack in the future and protect the Shenwu continent. He paused for a moment and then continued, if we want to investigate the source of this black stone, we need to first figure out where that Heaven Punisher tribe commander got this black stone. Yun Yao hurriedly replied, according to Ku, this black stone was bestowed by General Fu Long to that commander because that commander had performed a meritorious service. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and then said thoughtfully, if that's the case, then the slaves and miners who were enslaved by the Heaven Punisher tribe must have dug out this black stone from somewhere. Then, the black stone and many other cultivation resources gathered in General Fu Long's hands. When General Fu Long discovered the powerful effects of this black stone, he used it for cultivation and healing, and he rewarded it to his subordinates who had performed a meritorious service. Yun Yao nodded in agreement. Your deduction is very reasonable. This way, the source of the black stone is limited. The Luo Shui Divine Kingdom, Heaven End Divine Kingdom, the 72 cities, and Sky Pillar Mountain are all located somewhere in these four territories. Ji Tianqing nodded and smiled bitterly. He said with some annoyance, it's a pity that we have been busy rebuilding the divine kingdoms and stabilizing the situation for the past half a year, so we didn't discover this earlier. After the Heaven Punisher tribe was defeated, the slaves and miners regained their freedom and went their separate ways. Now, trying to find out the source of the black stone from the hundreds of millions of miners is like finding a needle in a haystack. Yun Yao did not regret her decision, and she calmly comforted him. Don't worry, as long as we use the strength of two divine kingdoms, we will find out the source of the black stone sooner or later. If 1 year isn't enough, then we will do it in 2 years. If 2 years isn't enough, then we will do it in 5 years. The black stone is extremely important to us, so we must find the source no matter what. This is not only to help us increase our strength, but also to unravel the secrets of the Shenwu continent or the five elements realm. Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a playful tone, by the way, Yao Yao, you have inherited Goddess Yaoguang's inheritance. Do you have any information about the black stone in your memories? Yun Yao pondered for a moment before revealing a helpless expression. She shook her head and said, I don't know why, but I have a strong desire for this black stone. The desire to obtain even more black stone has been lingering in my soul, and I can't get rid of it. I'm even certain that this black stone is very beneficial to my cultivation, far surpassing the effects of a divine stone. However, the information and memories I have regarding the black stone are a blur. End of chapter. Chapter 2498. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao discussed this matter for a long time. For 4 whole hours, the two racked their brains, but they were unable to obtain any more information. They only knew that blackstone was produced in the Shinwu continent, and its effects far surpassed that of ordinary divine stones. They needed to find the source of the blackstone and obtain even more in order to increase their strength as quickly as possible. Of course, Ji Tianqing also thought of something else. They could use the blackstone to create even more powerful divine weapons. After dawn, Yunyao left with a piece of blackstone. She wanted to return to the Luoshui divine kingdom and gather all the forces that could be used to investigate the source of the blackstone. Ji Tianqing also had a piece of blackstone, and he began to deploy his plan. He mobilized the forces of the Tianqing divine kingdom to search for clues about the blackstone within its borders. As for Tianzhu Mountain and the 72 cities, they were left to Ji Ku to investigate. Their main targets of investigation were the miners who had been enslaved by the Heaven Punishers. Very quickly, 3 months passed. There was still no substantial progress in the investigation of the blackstone. The divine guards and scouts of the 2 divine kingdoms, as well as the armies of the various empires, were still on the move. Ji Tianqing used the blackstone in his hand to conduct thousands of experiments, and he managed to obtain many results. First, the blackstone's hardness surpassed that of a mid-grade divine weapon. Even the sword of burial of heaven could not leave a mark on it. If this item could be used to forge a divine weapon, it would definitely be very powerful. Second, the blackstone contained a boundless amount of divine power. Even with Ji Tianqing's strength, it would take him 3 months to completely refine it. Once the blackstone's divine power was exhausted, it would automatically recover, but the speed was shockingly slow. Third, the blackstone contained spatial power that could help Ji Tianqing travel through space at will. It was not difficult for him to teleport 5,000 kilometers at a time. These experimental results allowed Ji Tianqing to gain a preliminary understanding of the blackstone's powerful effects. His desire to obtain more blackstone also became increasingly urgent. Unknowingly, half a year passed. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao's subordinates investigated more than 3,000 cities and more than 80 million enslaved miners. Ji Ku had also traveled all over Tianzhu Mountain and the 72 cities to investigate millions of miners. Unfortunately, no one knew the origin and production of the blackstone. However, there were some scattered pieces of information that were uncertain. After Ji Tianqing and the other 2 pieced together and analyzed, they finally came to a conclusion. The origin of the black stones was most likely within the Tianqing kingdom. Although this conclusion was not necessarily reliable, there was no substantial evidence. However, Ji Tianqing did not want to miss any opportunity. With the mentality that he would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go, he used the killer move that he had been saving up for many years. He had sent out the earth spirits, who were the best at tunneling through the earth and searching for and excavating mineral veins. The earth spirit race had been living and thriving in the sword world for many years. Now, they had expanded by more than 10 times and had a population of more than 60,000. Even the original peaceful Earth city had expanded by more than 10 times. The clan leader, Jin Shan Wang, had passed the 9 tribulations and become a martial sage under Ji Tianqing's guidance. The guardian beast of the Earth spirit race, the Xitigarbha godly armor that was good at tunneling, had also broken through to the martial sage realm. Ji Tianqing handed the important task of searching for the source of the black stones to Jin Shan Wang. Jin Shan Wang took the Xitigarbha godly armor and gathered 1,000 elites of the earth spirit race. They began to search within the Tianqing kingdom. Of course, before Jin Shan Wang set off, Ji Tianqing summoned him and the Xitigarbha godly armor. Ji Tianqing took out the black stones in front of them and asked them to study them carefully. He asked them to remember the appearance, characteristics, and aura of the black stones. In this way, they had a higher chance of finding the black stones. While the Earth Spirit race was searching for the black stones, Ji Tianqing's immortal guards and scouts continued to carry out their tasks. Yin Yao and Ji Ku did not stop searching either. Everyone believed that as long as they persevered, they would find clues sooner or later. At the same time, in the vast starry sky, a ball of dark red light wrapped around a black disk that was the size of a millstone. It was flying through the cold void. This black disk was General Long Fu's life-saving weapon, the Tether Sky Disk. Ever since they had escaped from the Five Elements realm, the Tether Sky Disk had been flying in the void for a year. In this year, General Long Fu had been in a deep sleep for half a year before his injuries recovered and he woke up. 3 months ago, he had contacted the captains under his command. More than 10 of the captains had been sacrificed and they had successfully taken over a world. They were now enslaving the living beings of the various races and plundering their resources. General Long Fu was comforted when he heard this news. However, he did not go to that world to meet up with his subordinates. He controlled the Tether Sky Disk and continued to fly into the depths of the starry sky. His target was the center of the purple cloud star, the most dazzling purple cloud star. Marshal Nan Zhennan had led a large number of battleships to attack the purple cloud star. General Long Fu wanted to meet the marshal to report the situation. At that moment, in the depths of the starry sky in front of the Tether Sky Disk, there was an incomparably huge star that was quietly emitting a sacred and dazzling purple light. Compared to that purple star, the densely packed stars in the starry sky seemed small and dim. Inside the Tether Sky Disk, General Long Fu stood in the desert and stared at the light screen in front of him. The light screen showed the scene of the starry sky. It was surrounded by a circle of silver light spots and a huge purple star in the middle. He looked at the purple star with a burning gaze, revealing a look of intense anticipation. The purple cloud star is indeed the core of the purple cloud star zone. It is the Emperor star that is above more than 300 worlds. It has been more than 40 years since the Marshal led his troops to attack the purple cloud star. I wonder if the Marshal has taken down the purple cloud star. At the thought of meeting the Marshal, General Long Fu felt excited and longing. Just as Yu had said, although he had not taken down the Five Elements realm, he had discovered a few secrets there. In particular, one of the secrets could even tempt the gods. As long as he truthfully reported these secrets to the Marshal, he would definitely be put in an important position and rewarded. Thinking of this, General Long Fu lowered his head and looked at his left hand. In the middle of his broad palm, a tiny black stone lay quietly. It looked ordinary. However, it was this seemingly ordinary black stone that contained an astonishing amount of divine power that saved his life. Boundless divine stone, not only did you save my life, but you will also become my opportunity to achieve a meteoric rise and become a true god. This time, I will make the Marshal see me in a different light and even win the Emperor's favor. I will definitely return to the Five Elements realm. General Long Fu muttered to himself. Then, he put away the boundless divine stone and drove the Tether Sky Disk to continue on his journey. Unknowingly, half a month passed. The Tether Sky Disk crossed millions of miles of space and finally arrived near the purple cloud star. Even from hundreds of thousands of miles away, General Long Fu could see that there were densely packed black figures in the starry sky. They were releasing endless dark red light pillars that ruthlessly bombarded the purple cloud star. Chapter 2499. Without a doubt, those densely packed black shadows were the battleships of the Heaven Punishers. General Long knew that the fleet led by Marshal Nan Zhennan was attacking Purple Cloud Planet. It had been more than 40 years, and Purple Cloud Planet still hadn't been conquered. No wonder it's the most powerful planet in Purple Cloud Planet Zone. It has lasted for more than 40 years. I wonder how many elites there are in this world to be able to hold on until now. General Dragon Subduing was filled with shock as he muttered to himself. Then, he controlled the Liao Sky Disk to get close to Purple Cloud Planet. It cruised in the void space, looking for Marshal Nan Jinnan's battleship. There were pitch-black battleships in all directions. They shone with a dark red light and shot out beams of light, making deafening noises. At first, when the Heaven Punishers saw the Liao Sky Disk, they were instinctively on guard. But when they saw the dark red light from the Liao Sky Disk and the unique aura of the Heaven Punishers, they let down their guard. The Liao Sky Disk flew in the void space for a day, passing through thousands of battleships. Finally, it found Marshal Nan Jinnan's battleship. It was a huge, pitch-black dragon-shaped battleship. Two huge fangs extended from the bow of the battleship, making it look ferocious and majestic. Whoosh! The Liao Sky Disk stopped near the battleship. Immediately, a group of guards in silver armor flew over. These guards checked the Liao Sky Disk. After confirming General Long's identity, they brought him onto the battleship. About 15 minutes later, General Long entered the meeting room of the battleship and finally saw Marshal Nan Jinnan. In the spacious and bright meeting hall, there were more than a dozen Heaven Punishers in golden armor sitting there. Like General Long, these people were the generals of the various fleets. They each had 200 to 300 battleships under their command. Sitting at the head of the table was a burly man with a head full of red hair. This man was more than 30 feet tall and had 4 pairs of black wings on his back. His face was covered by black scales, revealing only a pair of dark purple eyes. He was one of the 4 marshals under the Heaven Punisher Great Emperor, Marshal Nan Jinnan. When General Long entered the meeting room, Marshal Nan Jinnan and a dozen other marshals were in the middle of a meeting. Seeing him enter the meeting hall in a sorry state, everyone stopped their discussion and focused their attention on him. The dozen or so generals all had different expressions. Some frowned, some snickered, and some began to whisper to each other. All the generals could tell that General Fu Long must have been defeated, which was why he had to flee back in such a sorry state. The dragon-subduing general ignored everyone's strange gazes and walked to the Southern Expedition Marshal with his head held high and his chest puffed out. He bowed respectfully. Subordinate Fu Long pays his respects to Grand Marshal. Marshal Nan Jinnan also frowned. He looked at General Fu Long and asked in an imposing tone, "Fu Long, didn't you lead the Third Fleet to conquer the Southwest region? Why did you suddenly come back and look so miserable?" Dragon-subduing general didn't hide anything from everyone, reporting in a solemn tone, "Commander, I did bring my men to the Southwest region and obtained great results. In just 30 years, I've conquered 4 worlds and plundered countless resources. However, just a year ago, this subordinate discovered an extremely special star called the Five Elements World. That world was sealed by the ancient god. I brought 50 warships in and wanted to achieve great things. I didn't expect that not only did the ancient demon god reincarnate, but there was also the reincarnation of the divine king from 1,000 years ago. There was even a mysterious gem that we have never seen before." Hearing General Fu Long's words, the marshals were stunned. Shortly after, everyone burst into laughter. Many of them revealed mocking sneers. "Ha ha ha. We haven't seen each other for a few decades. Your storytelling skills have improved. General Fu Long is getting better at telling stories. I almost believed him just now. Tisk tsk. The reincarnation of the ancient demon god. And the reincarnation of the divine king from 1,000 years ago. Fu Long, do you know how many years ago the ancient demon god was? Do you know what the divine king is? Everyone, don't expose him. If he doesn't make up such a story, how can he explain the fact that he returned in defeat?" The dozen or so golden-armored generals were all gloating and discussing disapprovingly. Only a few of them didn't say anything and maintained their silence. Marshal Nan Zhennan didn't believe it either. He said expressionlessly, Fu Long, Ben Shui doesn't want to hear the process. He only wants to know the result. What's the result? Did you conquer that world? This. General Fu Long was speechless. He lowered his head dejectedly and said in a low voice, Marshal, I lost. Not only were all 5,000 soldiers wiped out, but I was also severely injured. However, in that world, this subordinate discovered an extraordinary and never-before-seen divine stone. Therefore, I risked my life to escape back here just to report this news to you. As he spoke, General Fu Long took out the boundless divine stone and presented it to Marshal Nan Zhennan. When the marshals saw him take out a strange black stone, they all fell silent. They stared at the black stone and observed it carefully. Marshal Nan Zhennan took the black stone and examined it in his palm. He frowned and said, This is the extraordinary and never-before-seen divine stone you mentioned. There was only a very weak strand of divine power, as well as a very weak strand of spatial power. Other than that, this stone is very ordinary. There is nothing special about it. After saying that, Marshal Nan Zhennan threw the black stone to General Fu Long. Displeasure flashed across his eyes. The marshals laughed again and started discussing without hiding anything. Ha ha ha. Fu Long really put in a lot of effort. He is really stupid. I don't know where he found this stone and he still wants to deceive the marshal. I thought he would really be able to take out some amazing treasure. Fu Long, you have really disappointed everyone. Back then, when we followed the marshal to attack Xixiao planet, you became a coward and ran to the southwest region to bully some uncivilized worlds. I didn't expect you to be so useless. You can't even deal with a normal world and you even lost 5,000 soldiers. How embarrassing. Everyone's discussion and mockery made General Fu Long angry and anxious. However, he suppressed his anger and didn't dare to flare up. He hurriedly explained to Marshal Nan Zhennan, Marshal, please believe me. What I said just now is not false at all. Originally, the divine power and space power in this boundless divine stone were very abundant and powerful. In order to escape, I absorbed the power of the divine stone and used it to activate the Liao Kong plate. Only then could I escape back here. Marshal, please give me some time. Soon, this divine stone will be able to recover its power. Marshal Nan Zhennan glanced at him and said expressionlessly, in that case, you can retreat and recuperate. When this stone has recovered its power, come and find Ben Shui again. Ben Shui still has to discuss the attack plan with the marshals. Don't disturb them here. Chapter 2500. The southern conquering marshal was a true god who was above mortals. Every word and action of his contained unparalleled power, suppressing all martial gods from the soul level. Even if General Dragon Fu was unwilling, he would not dare to disobey the southern conquering marshal. He knew that the southern conquering marshal's thoughts and attention were all on attacking Xixiao planet. He would not be bothered with anything else in the short term. Therefore, General Dragon Fu suppressed his complicated emotions and bowed respectfully. I will follow the Grand Marshal's orders and go treat my injuries now. I wish the Grand Marshal good luck and success in conquering Xixiao planet. Seeing his respectful attitude, the southern conquering marshal's eyes softened. He nodded and said, you may leave. General Dragon Fu did not say anything else. After bowing, he left the meeting hall. After he left, the generals roared with laughter for a while, commenting on Fu Long, mocking and ridiculing him. The southern conquering marshal looked at everyone and said in a low voice, everyone, be quiet and continue the previous topic. Now, the 16 fleets under Ben Shui have been attacking Xixiao planet for more than 40 years. More than half of the original 350,000 elite soldiers have been lost, leaving only 160,000 people. The great emperor is very unhappy about this and ordered Ben Shui to speed up the progress and take down Xixiao planet within 5 years. Only by taking over Zixiao planet and making it the headquarters of the Southern Conquering Fleet can we rule the entire Zixiao planet. The Eastern Conquering Marshal took down Silver Sea Starfield 8 years ago and was greatly appreciated by the Great Emperor and the Celestial Court. Hearing the Southern Conquering Marshal talk about serious matters, the 16 generals lowered their heads and did not say anything. The strength and foundation of Zixiao planet were beyond everyone's expectations. Their determination to resist the invasion was very strong and gave everyone a headache. General Dragon Fu left the Southern Conquering Marshal's ship. He took out the teeming void plate and entered the inner space of the teeming void plate. He stood on the wasteland with a gloomy face. Looking through the light screen in front of him, he stared at the void, the fleet, and Zixiao planet. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Damned bastards, how dare you mock me in such a presumptuous manner? Just you wait, there will be a day when the Grand Marshal will believe my words. When I return to the Five Elements world and make great contributions, all of you bastards will have to be obedient and respectful to me." As he muttered to himself, the dragon-subduing general clenched his fists. His gaze was firm and cold. After a long while, he suppressed his anger and said calmly, "Well, the Grand Marshal is eager to take over the Zixiao star. I can't be too hasty. For the next few years, I will first treat my injuries and recover my strength. After the Grand Marshal has taken down the Purple Cloud planet, I will report to him in detail about the Five Elements world. At that time, the boundless divine stone should also recover its strength, and it will be even more convincing." After making up his mind, the dragon-subduing general laid down on the plains and started to circulate his energy to heal himself. Time flew by. Unknowingly, 3 years passed in a flash. For the past 3 years, Shenwu continent had been peaceful. Ji Tianxing, Yin Yao, and Taihao divided the world and ruled the 3 divine kingdoms. They lived in harmony with each other without any friction. The 3 divine kingdoms had even formed the human alliance, and they often helped each other. Under such a peaceful and stable situation, the common people were recuperating and quickly recovering their strength. This was especially true for the Tianqing divine kingdoms and the Luoshui divine kingdoms, which had completed 90% of their reconstruction within 3 years. The cities, fortresses, and villages that had been destroyed by the flames of war had all been rebuilt. The commoners and martial artists who had been uprooted and homeless in the past had all returned to their hometowns and rebuilt their homes, living and working in peace. Even the martial arts world was flourishing and thriving, and countless sects and powers had risen among the common people. Of course, under the rule of the 3 divine masters, the various empires, sects, and powers were able to develop peacefully, not daring to stir up chaos or war. As for the other races on the continent, they all obediently prospered, not daring to have any thoughts of expanding their territories. Even if some races and powers grew stronger, they did not dare to start a war and could only go to Dark North Mountain to train their troops. Countless sects and martial artists also used Dark North Mountain as a training ground to train their subordinates. As a result, the remaining demons in Dark North Mountain suffered even more, and their numbers continued to dwindle. This was exactly what Ji Tianqing wanted. He estimated that the 3 divine kingdoms would be able to recover their strength in 10 years at most, and they would return to their former glory. In short, the Shenwu continent situation was very good. Besides this, there was also good news from Tianzhu Mountain and the 72 cities. 2 years ago, Tianzhu Mountain had been completely rebuilt. It was still a giant mountain that was 10,000 meters tall, and it towered between the heavens and the earth, forming a holy land for martial artists. After the calamity, Tianzhu Mountain's reputation had grown even more, and it had attracted hundreds of thousands of martial artists to seek guidance. The Huanglong Daoist had consulted Ji Tianqing, and after receiving instructions, he had begun to expand his territory and power, as well as recruit disciples. Currently, the number of disciples in the Pillar of Heaven's mountains had already reached over 10,000. Many of the city lords of the 72 cities had finally understood the situation, and they no longer dared to proclaim themselves as kings. Instead, they had all pledged allegiance to Tianzhu Mountain. As a result, the 72 cities had become part of Tianzhu Mountain's territory, and they were now under its jurisdiction and protection. All trivial matters regarding Tianzhu Mountain were handled by the Huanglong Daoist. As for the administrative matters of Tianqing's divine kingdom, Ji Tianqing had handed them over to trusted people. In any case, everything was going smoothly, and there was basically nothing for him to worry about. He only needed to make decisions when there were major events or decisions. During these 3 years, he had spent most of his time cultivating in the Jiutian 10 Absolutes Tower. 3 years had passed in the outside world, but he had been in seclusion for over 100 years. Now, his strength had improved once again, and he had reached the 3rd level of the martial god realm. Yin Yao and Ji Ku were the same, and their strength had increased by 1 level. One was at the 7th level of the martial god realm, while the other was at the 2nd level. However, aside from this good news, Ji Tianqing had always been worried about another matter. Over 1 million divine guards and thousands of Earth Spirit tribe elites had been searching in Tianqing's divine kingdom for 3 whole years, but they still could not find the source of the mysterious black stone. This matter had become his sore point, and as long as there was no answer, he would not be at ease. It was now evening, and the dim yellow sun was about to set. At the peak of the heaven-ceasing peak, in the majestic Tianqing Palace, Ji Tianqing was sitting in the study, and he was focused on reviewing memorials and handling the administrative matters of the divine kingdom. At this moment, there was a commotion outside the study, and it was accompanied by heavy footsteps. Ji Tianqing was awakened, and he frowned unhappily. He asked in a dignified tone, "Who is making a ruckus outside?" The guard captain who was guarding the study hurriedly replied respectfully, "Divine Lord, there is a young man riding on a fish who claims to be your disciple, and he wants to see you personally. He also brought companions, a black dragon and a blue fox, and he is very arrogant." End of chapter. Chapter 25:01. A young man riding a fish? And with a black dragon and a blue fox. Ji Tianqing immediately put down the memorial and raised his eyebrows. A playful smile appeared on his lips. "It's that bastard Bai Long, the black dragon and Qian Yu." Ji Tianqing's eyebrows relaxed and a smile appeared on his face. He waved his hand and ordered, "Let them in." The captain of the guards did not dare to delay and hurriedly ordered the guards to let them in. After a while, a handsome white-haired young man in a white robe swaggered into the study while riding a big ice-blue fish. The white-haired young man's face was devilishly handsome and even a little feminine. He was more beautiful than a beautiful woman. The big ice-blue fish he was riding looked fat and small, looking very funny and cute. Behind the big ice-blue fish, there was a black dragon that was more than 10 feet long and an ice-blue fox that was more than 3 meters long. The white-haired young man, the black dragon and the ice-blue fox were in high spirits. Their eyes were shining brightly. Ji Tianqing sized them up and couldn't help but chuckle. No wonder the guards said that there are a few arrogant fellows who are clamoring to see me. Look at you, all of you have broken through to the martial god realm. The white-haired young man in the lead originally had a cold face and a noble temperament. He had an arrogant attitude. However, when he saw Ji Tianqing, he immediately put on a smile and jumped to the ground. He smiled cheekily and bowed. "Dear master, disciple Bai Long pays his respects to you." Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and showed a disdainful expression. He waved his hand and said, "Don't play this with me. It gives me goosebumps." Bai Long was not embarrassed. He grinned and said, "Master, I haven't seen you for more than 200 years. Only this can show my longing for you." After that, he patted Lan Kuan's head and ordered, "Fat-head fish, pay your respects to master." Lan Kuan nodded obediently and said in a muffled voice, "Ah Kuan pays respect to master." Ji Tianqing gave Lan Kuan a deep look, then nodded with relief and said, "Very good, it seems you have cultivated the heaven-devouring incantation to a higher level. In the future, follow the white dragon with peace of mind." He will guide you in your cultivation. Lan Kuan did not say much and nodded rather solemnly. At this time, Black Dragon and Qian Yu came over and looked at Ji Tianqing with smiles. Old Ji, I didn't disappoint you. I successfully broke through to the godly realm 10 days ago. Black Dragon said with a silly smile. Qian Yu flew to Ji Tianqing's side and began to massage his shoulders and back attentively. Smiling, he said, Old Ji, only a few years have passed in the outside world, but we have been in seclusion for over 200 years. With your guidance and help, coupled with the deity technique you imparted, it would be difficult for us to not reach the deity realm. However, since we've already reached the martial god realm, shouldn't you be rewarded? Or perhaps, teach us a few more powerful deity techniques. Ji Tianqing reclined on the chair and enjoyed Qian Yu's attentive service. He chuckled and said, Little fox, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't think that you're invincible in the mortal world after breaking through to the deity realm. In fact, you've just stepped into the deity realm. The deity technique I imparted to you before is enough for you to cultivate to the monarch god realm. With your current strength, you've only comprehended a little bit. Continue to study it for a few hundred years. Hearing this, Qian Yu frowned and pouted. He said unhappily, Old Ji, aren't you too stingy? You're the king of the kingdom of gods now, the strongest person in the continent. You're not even willing to give a few deity techniques. Isn't that damaging to your reputation? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, Oh. You're in such a hurry to cultivate a new deity technique? Well, I'll give you a chance. As long as you can defeat him, I'll teach you a king-level divine technique. As he said this, he pointed at Bai Long. Qian Yu and Black Dragon's eyes were filled with hope, but when they turned around and saw Bai Long smiling, they immediately withered. Humph. Old Ji, you don't want to give it to me. You're using Old Bai as an excuse. Qian Yu looked away with a gloomy expression. Black Dragon muttered with some grievance, Old Ji, Old Bai is your pro-disciple. He beat us twice before, and his injuries haven't healed yet. Ji Tianqing realized that the two of them had already fought with Bai Long. He immediately laughed and said, Haha. No wonder the two of you are so docile. You're following Bai Long around. He was very clear about Qian Yu and Black Dragon's arrogance. Bai Long showed a humble smile and waved his hand. Master, you also know that I, Little White Dragon, have no regrets. My name, Little White Dragon, is known throughout the universe. Trampling on these two little guys is as easy as blowing off dust. It's not challenging at all. Don't worry, I'll be their senior in the future, and I'll definitely discipline them on your behalf. Ji Tianqing nodded and said seriously, That's good. Since you've all broken through to the deity realm and aren't willing to stay in the tower to cultivate, then come and help me with some matters. Bai Long smiled and cupped his hands. Your disciple brought them here this time to share your worries. Master, please instruct us. Ji Tianqing said earnestly, General Fu Long has been on the run for 4 years now, and Shenwu continent has been relatively peaceful for the past 4 years. However, I have a premonition that General Fu Long will make a comeback in a few years. Therefore, what I'm most concerned about now is finding out the source of the Blackstone as soon as possible. He then told Bai Long, Qian Yu, and Black Dragon about the mysterious Blackstone. After Bai Long heard this, he patted his chest without hesitation and said, Master, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and reminded, the Blackstone is very important to us. You must do your best. Before he could finish speaking, a guard's voice came from outside the study, interrupting him. Reporting to the Divine Lord, there's an urgent message. Ji Tianqing's gaze turned cold, and he said in a dignified tone, Bring it here. The guard captain at the door acknowledged the order and hurriedly presented a communication jade slip to Ji Tianqing. When Ji Tianqing saw the golden symbol on the jade slip, he immediately became alert and revealed a look of anticipation. It's from the Jinshan king. He hurriedly picked up the jade slip and used his consciousness to read the message inside. White Dragon and the three mythical beasts looked at him with puzzled expressions. After a while, Ji Tianqing's eyes shone brightly, and he revealed a look of pleasant surprise. He put down the jade slip and said excitedly, "This is great. This is great news." Bai Long saw how excited he was and asked expectantly, "Master, what good news has made you so happy?" Ji Tianqing's eyes shone brightly. "The Jin Shan King didn't let me down. After 3 years, we've finally found the whereabouts of the Blackstone." End of chapter. Chapter 2502. The Earth Spirit race was originally a child of the Earth, and they were naturally suited to move underground. The Jin Shan King and the Xitigarbha Divine Armor, who had reached the martial sage realm, could move about freely underground. They could go to places that even martial gods might not be able to reach. The Jin Shan King and the Xitigarbha Divine Armor were definitely the best candidates to investigate the source of the Blackstone. When the White Dragon, Qian Yu, and the Black Dragon heard the good news, they were excited and filled with joy and anticipation. "Wow! This is great news indeed. Master's wish will be fulfilled soon." The White Dragon was happy from the bottom of his heart, and he smiled. "I just arrived, and Master already received such good news. It seems that I am Master's lucky charm that brought you good luck." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and chuckled. "Don't be so talkative. This is all thanks to the Jin Shan King and the Xitigarbha Divine Armor. Furthermore, the Jin Shan King said that he sensed the aura of the Blackstone. However, that place is very dangerous, and I'm afraid that the matter will be very troublesome." The White Dragon's smile faded, and he asked with concern, "Where did he find the Blackstone? Is there any place on the Shenwu continent that is dangerous for us?" Ji Tianqing calmly replied, "He's in the Hidden Dragon Abyss, 1,000,000 kilometers north of the Divine Kingdom. White Dragon, don't underestimate the Five Elements world. This world is very mysterious, and it hides many unknown secrets that even I do not understand." The White Dragon humbly nodded. "If that's the case, then there's no time to lose. Let's set off now." Ji Tianqing nodded and temporarily set aside the Divine Kingdom's government affairs. He then led the White Dragon and the three divine beasts out of the study. He did not inform Yun Yao and Ji Ku, and he only brought the White Dragon and the three divine beasts to the Hidden Dragon Abyss in the north. After all, Yun Yao and Ji Ku were busy managing the Luoshui Divine Kingdom and cultivating in seclusion in the Divine Tower. The White Dragon rode the Blue Kraken while the Black Dragon carried Ji Tianqing and Qian Yu as they flew across the sky at lightning speed. In just a day, they had crossed 1,000,000 kilometers and reached the Hidden Dragon Abyss in the north of the Divine Kingdom. The Hidden Dragon Abyss was a name from thousands of years ago. For nearly 1,000 years, this name had long been forgotten by the world. This ancient abyss buried deep underground in the mountains disappeared from the memories of the people of the world. It was said that 10,000 years ago, the Hidden Dragon Abyss was 100,000 miles long and several thousand miles wide. It was located in the depths of the Hidden Dragon Mountain Range and was one of the most dangerous forbidden areas on the continent. The abyss was bottomless and seemed to lead to the mysterious depths of the Earth's core. Not only were there raging flames, but there was also surging lava. There were also powerful demons and monsters, as well as deadly poisonous gas and heaven and earth formations. However, 5,000 years ago, the four martial gods had fought a decisive battle here, causing the heavens to collapse and the earth to split apart, causing the sun and moon to dim in comparison. The mountain range within a radius of several tens of thousands of li had been razed to the ground. The Hidden Dragon Abyss had also been destroyed by the four martial gods and was buried deep underground. After thousands of years, mountain peaks and mountain ranges began to appear in the surroundings. But the Hidden Dragon Abyss was forever hidden underground, disappearing from the eyes of the world. Shwa! The Black Dragon carried Ji Tianqing and Qian Yu to a large canyon and stopped. White Dragon rode Lan Kuan and followed closely beside Black Dragon. Everyone looked down at the canyon and observed with keen eyes. The canyon was filled with clouds and mist, and they could vaguely see the lush forest. Roars of ferocious beasts could be heard from time to time. Ji Tianqing stood in the sky for a while and saw a golden figure flying out of the canyon. Shwa! The golden figure stopped in front of Black Dragon, revealing a muscular man in golden armor who was about 4 feet tall. This man in golden armor was the Golden Mountain King. His long hair was tied up in small braids, and he carried a huge golden battle axe on his shoulder. His appearance and aura were very valiant. However, there were 2 fresh scars on his face and bloodstains on his neck. "Greetings, young master. Sorry to keep you waiting." The Golden Mountain King bowed to Ji Tianqing and hammered his chest with his fist to show his respect. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and looked at him. He frowned and asked, "Golden Mountain King, why are you injured? Did you encounter danger in the Hidden Dragon Abyss?" The Golden Mountain King did not hide anything and answered truthfully, "Yes, young master. The Hidden Dragon Abyss is right below this canyon, about 1,000 miles underground. Just now, when I was exploring the abyss with the Xitigarbha divine armor, we were intercepted by an ancient demonic beast and fought with it. Fortunately, we won and the ancient demonic beast escaped. However, the Xitigarbha divine armor was injured and is recuperating underground." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with interest, "Oh. There's an ancient demonic beast in the Hidden Dragon Abyss. Let's go and take a look." The Golden Mountain King nodded and flew into the canyon, leading the way for Ji Tianqing. Everyone entered the canyon, and their bodies lit up with yellow light. They entered the ground smoothly and flew into the depths of the ground. As they went deeper into the ground, the surroundings became dark. The rocks and soil underground became more and more solid, and the resistance it brought to them was also increasing. At the same time, the temperature underground was also getting higher. When they reached 1,000 miles underground, they saw a dark red dragon that was tens of thousands of miles long and a few thousand miles wide. It was lying in the rock layer. This dark red dragon with flames rising from it was the Hidden Dragon Abyss that had disappeared for thousands of years. At first glance, the Hidden Dragon Abyss looked like a huge dragon. The rocks and soil in the Hidden Dragon Abyss were burned dark red by the earth core fire, and flames were rising in spirals. Everyone stood near the Hidden Dragon Abyss and looked down at the Hidden Dragon Abyss. They saw that the Hidden Dragon Abyss was filled with raging earth core fire. Dark red lava flowed out from the walls on both sides of the Hidden Dragon Abyss and flowed down the walls. An incomparably scorching heat spread out, almost roasting everyone into jerky. Fortunately, everyone was a martial god and they were not afraid of the high temperature and earth core fire. However, Lan Kuan was born with a fondness for water and was rather disgusted and resistant to fire. It instinctively shrank back. Although the Golden Mountain King was only a martial sage, he was not afraid of the earth core fire and lava because of his special body constitution and blood force. He stood at the edge of the Hidden Dragon Abyss and pointed at the raging fire in the Hidden Dragon Abyss. He said to Ji Tianqing, "Master, when I entered the Hidden Dragon Abyss with the Xitigarbha divine armor, I sensed the aura of the black stones at the bottom of the Hidden Dragon Abyss. I guess that there is a black stone mine in the sea of lava at the bottom of the Hidden Dragon Abyss." "A black stone mine?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and looked expectant. He muttered, "If there is a black stone mine, it will be great. We will be able to mine a large amount of black stones." With that, he waved his hand and ordered, "Let's go down and see what is going on." He rode on the black dragon and led the way into the Hidden Dragon Abyss. He flew down into the raging fire. The white dragon comforted Lan Kuan and entered the Hidden Dragon Abyss. The Golden Mountain King woke up the Xitigarbha divine armor and followed the rest into the Hidden Dragon Abyss. End of chapter. Chapter 2503. The surging earth core fire incessantly burned everyone. Ji Tianqing, Bai Long, and the three divine beasts were safe and sound. They were not afraid of the earth core fire. The Jin Shan King and the Xitigarbha godly armor were having a hard time. Not only did they consume a lot of their magic power, but their flying speed was also much slower. After 15 minutes, they had dived 200 miles into the sea of fire and were about to reach the bottom of the abyss. At this moment, on the crimson rock wall not far from them, two huge palace-like heads suddenly popped out. The two dark heads were connected together. They had 4 pointed ears, 2 pairs of bulging dark red eyes, and 2 bloody mouths full of fangs. At first glance, these two huge heads looked like the heads of jackals. However, they looked ferocious and ferocious, revealing an extremely violent killing intent. Roar! Roar! The two heads roared at the same time, opened their bloody mouths, and spat out 4 dark red pillars of fire, attacking Ji Tianqing, Bai Long, and the rest. Bai Long, Qian Yu, and He Long were observing their surroundings. Suddenly, they noticed the dark red pillars of fire, and immediately wanted to cast spells to block them. However, Ji Tianqing had long sensed the danger. He raised his hand and unleashed a giant golden palm that was as big as a mountain, slamming it towards the 4 fire pillars. Bang! With a muffled explosion, the 4 dark red pillars of fire were smashed into smithereens. The power of the giant golden palm did not decrease, and it hit the two heads hard. Awoo! The two huge heads screamed in pain and hurriedly shrank back into the dark red rock wall. When everyone turned their heads to look at the rock wall, they only saw countless magma sliding down the straight and steep rock wall. The two heads disappeared, and only a huge palm print was left on the rock wall. The Xitigarbha godly armor tensed up, and a strong anger burst out from its body. The Jin Shan King also looked gloomy and said with hatred, "Young master, the thing that attacked us is that lava beast. It can merge with lava and fire, and it can come and go without a trace in the abyss. It is very difficult to deal with." Without waiting for Ji Tianqing to speak, the white dragon took the initiative to volunteer and said confidently, "Master, this little beast is not worthy of your hand. Let me deal with it." Qian Yu and He Long also rubbed their palms together in anticipation. Bai will help you kill it." White Dragon waved his hand confidently and laughed, "No need, just watch the show." After saying that, he rode Lan Kuan and flew towards the rock wall not far away. At the same time, he released his divine sense to cover an area of 1,000 miles. His eyes turned golden as he searched with a deep gaze. The ferocious magma beast hid in the rock wall and didn't move for the time being. It didn't dare to attack again. Even its aura was obscured by the lava and flames, making it impossible to detect. However, the white dragon only observed for 2 breaths before it found its hiding place. Hee. Get out here for this, young master. White Dragon grinned coldly, then suddenly raised both of his fists and punched the rock wall 100 miles away. Boom! 2 dark golden fist shadows instantly smashed the rock wall into smithereens. A huge crater with a radius of 100 miles was blasted out of the rock wall. Countless rocks and lava splashed out. A ferocious magma beast that was 1,000 feet long flew out like a cannonball. It screamed as it fell into the sea of flames below. At this time, everyone saw that the ferocious beast looked like a fire wolf with 2 heads and 4 hooves. Its head was black and was protected by a layer of hard shell. Its body was dark red like fire, as if it was formed by lava and flames. Even if it was distorted, it could be restored to its original state. The white dragon's attack succeeded and he laughed proudly, "Ahaha. Grandpa White Dragon is here. Come and beg for your surrender, you watchdog." As he said that, he made a spell with both of his hands and drew countless arcs in front of him. 18 huge golden swords appeared out of thin air and shot out like a rain of arrows, covering the figure of the ferocious magma beast. Bang, bang, bang. Although the ferocious magma beast tried its best to dodge, it could only dodge 10 of the huge swords. It was still stabbed by 8 of the golden swords, producing a series of muffled sounds. The golden swords were unstoppable. They blasted several holes in the body of the ferocious magma beast, causing lava and rocks to splatter all over the sky. After suffering such a heavy blow, the ferocious magma beast looked miserable. Its body was on the verge of collapse. However, its vitality was abnormally tenacious. It opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the endless flames and magma like a whale sucking in water. In the blink of an eye, its tattered body was repaired by the dark red magma, and it was restored to its original state. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. The corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile. This ferocious beast is quite interesting. It looks like the legendary earthly fire two-headed wolf. King Jinshan nodded and added, this ferocious beast has extremely strong recovery ability. Even if its body is destroyed, it can use the magma to reform it again. It's equivalent to an immortal body. A few hours ago, Xidagarba divine armor and I injured it. I didn't expect it to recover from its injuries. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. Although it only has the strength of the martial sage realm, it has an almost immortal physique. It can be said to be invincible below the martial god realm. Since ancient times, most of the places with amazing treasures are guarded by ferocious beasts. This also makes me more certain that there is a black stone mineral vein hidden under the abyss. As soon as his voice fell, the ferocious magma beast roared and rushed toward White Dragon like a stream of light. It opened its 2 bloody mouths and spewed out magma and fire pillars toward White Dragon and Blue Leviathan. Blue Leviathan did not retreat. It opened its huge mouth and spewed out endless ice-blue brilliance, pouring down like a monstrous flood. Boom, 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 boom. The ice-blue brilliance collided with the magma fire pillars, producing a deafening sound that reverberated in the abyss. A moment later, the magma fire pillars collapsed and shattered, turning into black ashes that scattered into the sea of fire. The ice-blue brilliance was also fragmented, turning into a mist that dissipated into the sky. Without waiting for the ferocious magma beast to attack again, White Dragon let out an earth-shattering roar and descended from the sky. His body lit up with dazzling white light, condensing into a 1,000-foot-long white dragon shadow. Using himself as a sword, he stabbed at the ferocious magma beast. Boom! The ferocious magma beast was suppressed by an invisible divine power and could not dodge at all. It was immediately hit. With a loud explosion, the white dragon sword shadow pierced through the body of the ferocious magma beast and split it into 2 halves from the middle. The 2 halves of the body each had a head and were covered with cracks and holes. The powerful impact caused the 2 halves of the body to fall and crash into the sea of magma, splashing magma all over the sky. White Dragon knew that the ferocious beast's vitality was tenacious. After falling into the sea of magma, it could quickly reconstruct its body. His figure flashed and was about to rush into the sea of magma to kill the ferocious beast. But at this moment, Ji Tianqing suddenly frowned and ordered, "White Dragon, stop." White Dragon was in high spirits. He had just stretched his muscles and bones and was about to let go of the battle. Even so, when he heard Ji Tianqing's order, he stopped without hesitation. End of chapter. Chapter 2504. Bai Long obeyed Ji Tianqing's order unconditionally. However, he raised his head and looked at Ji Tianqing with a puzzled look. He did not understand. Was he going to show mercy to that ferocious beast? However, when he looked at Ji Tianqing, he found that Ji Tianqing and the Jinshan king were looking down at the sea of fire with a strange expression. Bai Long turned his head and looked down. He saw that the sea of lava under the sea of fire was surging with waves of fire and hundreds of fire pillars were spurting out. As the lava surged more and more violently, huge figures emerged from the sea of lava one after another. Swoosh! 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 Those strange creatures were dark red and covered in lava. They looked like toads the size of houses. They had broad backs that were covered in dark red scales. One look and one could tell that they were extremely sturdy. On their triangular heads, there was a black rhinoceros-like horn and a pair of huge golden eyes that protruded outward. Under his broad and fat body, there were 4 extremely thick and sturdy legs. His 4 legs were sharp black claws that had the power to split open metal and stone. Good-a-do. Good-a-do. Soon, hundreds of toad-like creatures floated above the sea of lava. They looked like they were ready to fight. They glared at Ji Tianqing, Bai Long, and the others angrily. The 2 halves of the ferocious beast that was thousands of feet long had merged. It returned to its original form and floated above the sea of lava. It stared at the group with a murderous look. The leader was a red toad that stood on top of its head. It looked extremely majestic and domineering. This fiery red toad looked at the crowd with a dignified look, opened its wide mouth and said a few words that no one could understand. However, its face was filled with anger and its tone was deep and forceful. Both Ji Tianqing and the white dragon could guess that the red toad was questioning them why they had intruded into this abyss and disturbed their peace. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, and the corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile. Interesting. These toad-like creatures aren't savage beasts, but some ancient race. The white dragon frowned and smacked his lips. What race is this? Toad? Fire toad? How could it be so ugly? It's obvious that they haven't finished evolving yet. They don't even look like humans. There were close to 100 races on Shenwu continent, and most of them had evolved from plants, birds, and beasts. However, those races had evolved perfectly, and their appearances were very similar to the human race. These dark red toad monsters were completely different from humans, and they didn't seem to be an intelligent race either. At this time, the fire toad leader that was riding on the lava ferocious beast roared angrily when it saw everyone's confused expressions. It pulled out a pitch-black pitchfork that was 10 meters tall. It released dark red flames and wrote a few large, crooked words in the air. The words were condensed from flames and glowed in the air. It was a pity that each word was very abstract and seemed to be made up of a few or a dozen earthworms. It was impossible to recognize them. Ji Tianqing, the Jin Shan King, and the rest were not paying attention to the large, blazing words. When the fire toad leader pulled out its pitch-black pitchfork, everyone's eyes were focused on it, and they couldn't take their eyes off it. The pitchfork's appearance was rather simple and crude, and it gave off a rough aura. At the bottom was a handle that was 10 meters long and as thick as a water bucket. At the top was a polished, 3-edged pitchfork. However, the pitchfork was made of a cold, pitch-black stone. It contained boundless divine power, an incomparably powerful spatial energy, and an extremely dense power of fire. This was the black stone that Ji Tianqing had been searching for many years. It really is here. Ji Tianqing's eyes shone brightly as he muttered to himself, the black stone that is considered a rare divine item has been polished into an ugly pitchfork. What a waste of such a precious item. The Jin Shan King also looked excited as he stared at the pitchfork. He said excitedly, Master, if I can get so many black stones, I can definitely help you forge the best divine items. Hearing their words, the white dragon, Qian Yu, and the black dragon suddenly realized something and exclaimed. The pitchfork in the toad's hand is the black stone that we're looking for. This is great. There really are black stones here, and it seems that there are quite a lot of them. Old G, I think we're going to be rich. The unusual reaction from the crowd caught the fire toad leader's attention. It looked at the group with a burning gaze, like a hungry wolf that had seen a sheep. It quickly retracted its short and thick right arm. It seemed that its patience had run out. It waved its pitchfork and roared as it gave an order. Instantly, hundreds of fire toads roared, took out pitch-black spears and long swords, and started to attack the group. It was obvious that this race was not proficient in forging divine items. The spears and long swords were very simple, as if they were made of raw black stones. Even so, the spears and long swords were indestructible and contained terrifying divine power. Swoosh! 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 Hundreds of fire toads attacked at the same time, throwing out flaming light blades and thousands of lava pillars, sealing off the area within a radius of 500 miles. Ji Tianqing, the white dragon, and the rest were instantly engulfed by the sky-covering flames and were in danger. However, the group was not worried. Instead, they were overjoyed. Their eyes became brighter and brighter, and they looked even more excited. Oh my God, this group of toads actually have a black stone weapon in their hands. Even the simplest black stone weapon is far more powerful than a middle-grade divine item. It's such a waste for it to be in their hands. We're rich. Old G, we're really rich now. Don't just stand there. Kill those toads and take their divine weapons. The white dragon, Xianyu, and the rest of the group shouted excitedly as they used their ultimate skills to launch a fierce counterattack. Sword Blade Storm. The white dragon shouted as he formed a divine art with both hands. Thousands of golden swords were released, forming a huge sword blade storm that blasted toward the sea of fire below. The blue leviathan shot out a cold light that covered the sky and extinguished the flames and light blades that were attacking from all directions. Xian Yu and the black dragon did not want to be outdone. They used their most powerful divine abilities to destroy the other party's attacks. A huge chaotic battle broke out above the sea of lava. The five-colored divine power light collided fiercely in the air and exploded into dazzling sparks. The violent shockwaves dispersed the flames within a radius of 1,000 miles and stirred up huge waves in the sea of lava. This battle only lasted for 100 breaths of time before it quickly came to an end. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. The large number of fire toads were facing 5 martial gods and 2 martial saints. There was no doubt about the outcome. Please give me a few recommendation tickets. Thank you very much. End of chapter. Chapter 2505. The fire toads lost miserably. More than 40 fire toads were killed, and more than 50 were seriously injured. Although they were the same as the lava beast. Their bodies were smashed, but they could still use the lava to reform their bodies. They were almost immortal. However, Ji Tianqing, Bai Long, and the others directly used their unique divine powers and shattered their divine souls. When their divine souls were shattered, they were truly dead. Even if their bodies were intact, it was useless. When the battle ended, the fire toad leader was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out. His heart was filled with grief and fear. He roared in despair and led his seriously injured subordinates into the lava sea and quickly escaped. Ji Tianqing was not in a hurry to chase them into the lava sea. He and Bai Long caught 3 fire toads that were seriously injured and dying. In addition, they also seized 42 black stone weapons. Gold Mountain King was ecstatic. He picked up those weapons and looked at them fondly. Ji Tianqing, Bai Long, and the others surrounded the 3 dying fire toads and began to interrogate them. Unfortunately, the two sides did not speak the same language and could not communicate at all. Ji Tianqing tried to speak the language of the human clan, the demon clan, and the demon clan. He even used a few words of the ancient language. But the 3 fire toads could not understand at all. They could only cry and groan in pain. Bai Long, Qian Yu, and Gold Mountain King also tried to speak the language of the Dragon Clan, the Heavenly Fox Clan, and the Earth Spirit Clan. The result was the same. The 3 fire toads were still very confused. They struggled angrily and madly. Ji Tianqing had no choice but to order, since there is a language barrier, we can only use the soul-searching secret technique. Bai Long, do it. Okay. Bai Long responded and quickly used the soul-searching secret technique to seize the divine soul memory of a fire toad. He closed his eyes and operated his divine soul. It took him a full 15 minutes to refine the divine soul memory and organize it clearly. When he opened his eyes, he met the expectant eyes of the others and grinned. Master, there's a result. White Dragon cupped his hands and bowed to Ji Tianqing, then reported respectfully, according to this guy's memory, they are the bloodline passed down from ancient times, and they are called the Earth's core people. In ancient times, they were also an intelligent race that walked upright, very similar to humans. However, for tens of thousands of years, they had been living in the depths of the Earth's core, moving in the sea of magma. As a result, their body structure has been imperceptibly influenced, resulting in their current ugly appearance. White Dragon spoke with assurance. He pointed to the unconscious Earth's core man and explained, although this guy only has the strength of the tribulation realm, he has lived for more than 8,000 years and can only be considered to be in his prime. The Earth's core man had a trace of the ancient god spirit bloodline, so his physique was very special. Their lifespan is over 10,000 years, and they can basically live for more than 15,000 years. Hearing this, Qian Yu revealed a puzzled expression and asked, is it really that magical? Did this mean that the people in the Earth's core cave all had the strength of a martial sage? Even the people of the Earth's core who had lived for more than 10,000 years would become martial gods. Since this race is so powerful, why did they hide underground? If they invaded Shenwu continent, wouldn't they be able to dominate the entire continent? White Dragon chuckled and shook his head. Qian Yu, things are not as simple as you think. The Earth's core people are limited by their physique and bloodline, and they can only move about in the depths of the Earth's core. Once they reach land, their lifespan will rapidly decline, and their strength will be greatly weakened. Even their movements will become difficult. However, in the magma of the Earth's core, they are almost invincible. Moreover, their race seems to have a mission, as if they are protecting something. Everyone came to a sudden realization and nodded to express their understanding. Black Dragon said with certainty, their mission is definitely to protect the Blackstone Vein, which is a peerless divine item. White Dragon shrugged and pointed to the unconscious Earth's core man, I don't know about that. After all, this guy is just a small fry, and he doesn't deserve to know these secrets. Ji Tianqing asked, where is the lair of the Earth's core people? Is it in the sea of magma below? How many people are there in total? How many martial gods do they have? Also, where do they get the black stone they use to forge their weapons? These were crucial questions that everyone was most concerned about, so they all stared at White Dragon without blinking. White Dragon thought for a moment before answering with a solemn expression, the sea of magma below is very vast, and it has a radius of at least a few 100,000 kilometers. It is the territory of the Earth's core people. It is very difficult for them to reproduce, so their population is very small. The entire tribe only has about 1,000 people. The 100 Earth's core people from earlier were the tribe's guards, and the leader was the guard commander. The lava beast that the commander rode was the earthly fire twin-headed wolf that Master had mentioned. As for the martial gods, according to this guy's memories, there should be 4 of them. Among them are the tribe's high priest, chief, and deputy chief. In addition, there is an elderly elder who is the chief's father and is also a martial god. After pausing for a moment, White Dragon continued, the black stone they use to forge their weapons is collected from the sea of magma, and they call it Origin Stone. Origin Stone. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and muttered to himself, Origin Stone. White Dragon nodded and said, that's about it. In the sea of magma, stones and metals below divine rank will be melted into magma. Only gems and metals above divine rank can be preserved and form mineral veins and rock layers. The origin stone we are looking for is usually in those mineral veins, and must be refined to obtain it. The refining techniques of the Earth's core people are very shallow, and they can only make some simple weapons. They can only make a few sets of sophisticated armor. However, they have mined a large number of origin stones, and almost everyone has an origin stone weapon. Not only can origin stone weapons help them fight, but they can also help them cultivate and increase their strength quickly. Hearing White Dragon's words, the Golden Mountain King, Xian Yu, and Black Dragon were even more excited, and they could not wait to enter the sea of magma and excavate origin stone veins. However, Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered for a moment, and said in a serious tone, although with our strength and methods, we can do whatever we want here. However, the Earth's core people are the masters of this place, and they know the sea of magma like the back of their hands. If we fight with the Earth's core people and forcibly seize the origin stone veins, we will have to pay a heavy price and spend a long time. After all, they will not fight with us head-on, and they will definitely scatter and try to harass us again. Therefore, we should try not to attack by force, and it would be best if we can outsmart them. Hearing him say this, White Dragon and the Golden Mountain King frowned, and they were a little troubled. Outsmart them? I'm afraid that's very difficult. We can't communicate with the Earth's core people, and we can't even negotiate. Chapter 2506. We have to outsmart them and try not to attack them by force. White Dragon frowned and muttered to himself. His brain was working quickly. Soon, 10 breaths of time passed. Everyone was still thinking hard when Bai Long's eyes flashed and he suddenly had an idea. Master, I have a bold idea. Everyone immediately looked at the White Dragon with expectant eyes. Bai Long, tell us. After getting Ji Tianqing's approval, Bai Long hurriedly said, Master, you can also refine the soul memory of a caveman and have a basic understanding of their language. Then, we will possess these two guys and pretend to be them to sneak into the caveman tribe. We will find an opportunity to capture the tribe leader and use him as a hostage to negotiate with the caveman. After hearing this, Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, This is a good idea. Although it is a little risky, we can try it. However, this idea is not appropriate enough and needs to be perfected. At this time, Xian Yu hurriedly shook his head and interrupted, Negotiate with the cavemen? What if they are stubborn or would rather die than obey? Bai Long was suddenly stuck. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, That's not a problem. As long as we can capture the tribe leader, things will be easy. We can pretend to negotiate with him and then I will secretly use the soul manipulation divine art. The success rate will be higher. As long as I control the tribe leader, he will become my puppet. He will hand over all the origin stones and help us mine origin stones. Bai Long nodded and said with a smile, Yes, yes, yes. To be on the safe side, we not only have to control the tribe leader, but also the deputy tribe leader and high priest. Hearing his words, Ji Tianqing, Jin Shan Wang, and the others laughed. Although the two captive Earth's core people didn't understand the conversation, they saw Bai Long's treacherous sneer. The two of them had a bad premonition and struggled with all their might, cursing angrily. The White Dragon glared at the two of them. He raised his hand and punched them twice, knocking the two Earth's core cave people unconscious. Ji Tianqing did not waste any more time and hurriedly used the soul-searching secret technique to plunder the memories of one of them. Instantly, a vast amount of soul memories flooded into his mind like a tide. This Earth's core cave man, whose memories had been taken away by him, had lived for more than 9,000 years. His memories were vast. However, after Ji Tianqing sorted out this person's memories, he found that his memories were very monotonous. In his 9,000 years of memories, he spent most of his time sleeping, in a daze, patrolling the magma ocean, and mining mines. Very few alien races invaded the lava ocean, and no disasters happened. However, a few thousand years ago, there was an unprecedented earthquake that alarmed the people of the Earth's core cave. In addition, a few powerful exotic beasts had accidentally entered this place, but they were all killed by them. Half a quarter of an hour later, Ji Tianqing fused with this person's memories and began to grasp the words of the Earth's core man. He raised his head to look at the white dragon and saw that the white dragon's soul had already left its body and possessed the body of the Earth's core man. As for the white dragon's divine body, he put it into his spatial ring and carried it with him. Ji Tianqing's soul also left his body and possessed the body of the Earth's core man. In the blink of an eye, he and the white dragon transformed into two dark red toad monsters. The white dragon stretched its limbs and familiarized itself with its unfamiliar body. It muttered gloomily, "These degenerate things, their bodies are so ugly. They're simply ruining my image as a Prince Charming. Especially this bloated body, 4 thick thighs, it's too awkward." Everyone raised their heads and saw the white dragon standing in the air with its 2 legs raised high. It was scratching its ears and cheeks. Such a funny scene immediately made everyone burst into laughter. Ji Tianqing scolded with a smile, "White dragon, you're now a Earth's core man. You have to walk on all 4s like a toad. How can you stand up?" The white dragon then reacted and smiled awkwardly, cough cough. "I'm not used to it for a while. I'll be fine after a while." After saying that, he turned to look at Lan Kuan, Qian Yu, the Black Dragon, and the Golden Mountain King. With a serious face, he said, "Remember, don't tell anyone that I've turned into a toad." Without waiting for him to finish, everyone burst into laughter. Ji Tianqing couldn't help but send him flying with a kick, sending him flying 30 meters away. "Brat, who are you calling a toad?" The white dragon ran back with a gloomy face. He nodded at Ji Tianqing and smiled apologetically, "Master, please don't be angry. It was just a slip of the tongue. Cut the crap, we should go." Ji Tianqing was too lazy to listen to his nonsense. He passed through the sea of fire and dived into the sea of magma. The white dragon quickly followed and stretched out its hind legs like a toad. With a plop, it dived into the sea of magma. The master and disciple flew in the sea of magma with a terrifying temperature, but it was as if they were walking on flat ground. There was no discomfort or obstruction at all. The two of them continued to dive into the depths of the sea of magma, heading straight for the cave people's tribe. As for Lan Kuan, Qian Yu, the Black Dragon, the Golden Mountain King, and the Xitigarbha Divine Armor, they stayed above the sea of magma. They dug a big hole in the rock wall and temporarily hid there, quietly waiting for Ji Tianqing's orders. Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon flew for an hour, crossing tens of thousands of miles of magma before arriving at the cave people's tribe. The cave people's way of living was the same as the savage beasts. They all lived in caves. The so-called tribe was just a mountain range in the depths of the sea of magma. This was the gathering place of the cave people. It was also a black gold mountain range that was thousands of miles long. It contained rich source stones and all kinds of metal ores. This mountain range was incomparably hard and had reached the divine grade. Therefore, it could be preserved in the sea of magma and not be melted into magma. Thousands of Earth's core cavemen dug out countless caves in this black gold mountain range as their own residences. Every cave had to be dug and polished over the years before it could continue to expand. Therefore, whoever's cave was bigger and deeper would be the one who was stronger. In the cave people, this was a very honorable thing. According to this law, Ji Tianqing deduced that the largest cave in the mountain range was most likely the residence of the patriarch. He and the White Dragon quietly sneaked into the black gold mountain range and observed the situation around them, looking for the largest cave. At this moment, an angry roar sounded in the black gold mountain range that was riddled with holes. Following that, hundreds of Earth's core dwellers rushed out of the caves with origin stone spears and sabers in their hands. They gathered together and formed a huge team, heading south in a grandiose manner. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon understood. It must be those injured guards who had fled back and reported the news to their clansmen. That was why the cave people were so angry and went all out to take revenge. End of this chapter. Chapter 2507. Master, what should we do now? Bai Long looked at the group of people from the Earth's core cave, and his brows furrowed together. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and chuckled, "Isn't this better? It's more convenient for us to move." Bai Long was startled for a moment, but then he understood what he meant. "I understand. Master, what you mean is that the main force of the Earth's core cave people has left, and there are very few people left in the tribe. At this time, it will be easier for us to capture the patriarch." "Correct." Ji Tianqing nodded and revealed a smile. Bai Long hesitated for a moment and asked worriedly, "But master, look at the front of that team, there are two very strong guys who are obviously the leaders. What if one of those two guys is the patriarch?" Ji Tianqing shook his head and said with certainty, "Those two guys should be the high priest and the deputy patriarch. The patriarch's status is the most honorable, how could he personally go? Even if the patriarch really went, it would be a waste of effort. We just have to wait here for him to come back." Bai Long was relieved and nodded, "That makes sense. Master is the most considerate." After that, the two of them passed through the Black Gold Mountain range and quietly sneaked into the depths. The two of them used their divine senses to cover a radius of 2,000 miles. After searching carefully for a moment, they quickly found an exceptionally large cave. The cave was located in the depths of the Black Gold Mountain range and was hidden in a kernel. It was difficult for people who were not familiar with the tribe's terrain to find it. The cave entrance was 10 feet wide and there were 6 Earth's core cave people guarding on both sides. In the tribe, this was definitely the most prestigious place. Above the cave entrance, there were a few ancient words engraved. Ji Tianqing observed for a moment and recognized the words Earth's Core Temple. He frowned and muttered, "Earth's Core Temple. It sounds like a place for sacrifices and ceremonies, but it doesn't seem like the residence of the patriarch." However, in the entire tribe, only this cave is the largest and there are words engraved on the cave entrance. "It should be here." With that, he brought Bai Long and flew towards the cave. Both of them were covered in cuts and bruises. They were in a sorry state, and their expressions were filled with anger and panic. As soon as the two of them landed at the entrance of the cave, the 6 guards with swords and sabers immediately surrounded them. The 6 guards sized them up and shouted at them, as if they were interrogating them for information. Ji Tianqing quickly showed an expression of anger and pain. He pointed at his body that was full of scars and then pointed inside the cave. He also yelled a few words in a language that even he couldn't understand. The 6 guards were stunned and looked at each other in dismay. Taking advantage of this opportunity, White Dragon pretended that his injuries were too serious. He closed his eyes and fainted, falling into Ji Tianqing's arms. The 6 guards immediately looked concerned and asked about the situation. Some of them even offered to help White Dragon up. This drama queen. Ji Tianqing was secretly amused. He quickly picked up the unconscious White Dragon and hurriedly flew into the cave. The 6 guards shouted a few words, as if they were warning him or trying to dissuade him. However, Ji Tianqing was too lazy to pay attention to them. In the blink of an eye, he had entered the cave and disappeared at the end of the tunnel. The 6 guards didn't chase after him. They all retreated to the 2 sides of the cave and whispered to each other, their faces filled with righteous indignation. Obviously, they also knew about the invasion of the non-humankind. They had killed and injured dozens of guards. Ji Tianqing and White Dragon were regarded by them as guards who were severely injured and had fled back. Inside the spacious cave, there was a dark tunnel that led to the inside of the mountain. There were some forks on both sides of the tunnel that led to other tunnels and secret rooms. Ji Tianqing carried White Dragon and flew along the main tunnel to the end. He then entered a spacious hall. The hall was 100 meters wide and empty. There were only a few statues in the 4 corners. At the head of the hall, there was a 10-meter tall stone platform. The black stone platform was engraved with densely packed words of the Earth Core Cave Human Tribe. It looked like tens of thousands of earthworms and tadpoles were squeezed together. There was a black stone lamp at the four corners of the stone platform. It burned with a dark red flame that rose in spirals and emitted a surging hot aura. Ji Tianqing and White Dragon's eyes were focused on the stone platform. A cavern man with a dark red body and golden veins on his back was lying on the stone platform, sleeping with his eyes closed. This Earth's core man's body was larger than the others, and he looked a little old and bloated. However, his body contained a shocking divine aura. He was definitely an expert of the martial god realm. Ji Tianqing and White Dragon's eyes instantly lit up. The two of them looked at each other, and the corners of their mouths curled into a smile. It should be this guy. It seems that he is the tribe leader. At this moment, the Earth Core man woke up. He opened his eyes and looked at Ji Tianqing and White Dragon. Its eyes were huge and majestic, and its entire body was emitting a powerful pressure. It opened its wide mouth and asked in a squeaky voice. Although Ji Tianqing and White Dragon did not understand, they could guess that the other party must be questioning them why they had trespassed into the forbidden area. Therefore, the two of them were filled with grief and indignation. They used their hands and feet to gesture wildly. The tribe leader of the Earth Core Cave Human blinked his eyes in confusion. He sized up Ji Tianqing and White Dragon. Seeing that he was indifferent and had no intention of leaving the high platform, Ji Tianqing did not waste any more time. He transmitted his voice to White Dragon and said, "Get ready to attack." White Dragon immediately understood. He pretended to be emotional and roared, waving his hands and shouting. The tribe leader's attention was attracted by him. He stared at him fiercely and shouted in a majestic tone. White Dragon rolled his eyes and pretended to faint. He fell to the ground with his limbs spread out. Seeing that he was acting so hard, Ji Tianqing almost could not help but laugh. The tribe leader frowned. His figure flashed and jumped off the high platform. He turned into a red light and flew to White Dragon's side. He lowered his head to check on White Dragon's condition. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing decisively made his move. Sky-piercing finger. He shouted coldly and suddenly stretched out his right claw. He used two fingers as a sword and stabbed at the back of the tribe leader's neck. When he was fighting with the Earth Core man, he found that the back of the neck was one of the Earth Core man's vital points. Pft! The black and sharp sword fingers stabbed the back of the tribe leader's neck. A muffled sound rang out. An incomparably fierce divine power burst out from the sword fingers. It instantly pierced through the scales and flesh and blasted into the tribe leader's body. There was a cracking sound as the bones in the tribe leader's neck shattered on the spot. He could not help but open his mouth and spit out dark red lava. The violent impact sent it sprawling on the ground. He was caught off guard and was seriously injured. He immediately jumped up and glared at Ji Tianqing. He let out a muffled roar like thunder. Ji Tianqing did not give him a chance to fight back. He separated his hands and grabbed at him like an eagle's claws. End of chapter. Chapter 2508. Sky-capturing Dragon Claw. Ji Tianqing's palms glowed with a sacred golden light, forming two giant dragon claws that went for the clan leader's head. The clan leader was enraged. He opened his mouth and spat out four dark red pillars of fire at the two dragon claws. Kaboom! The golden dragon claw collided with the crimson pillar of fire, producing a crisp cracking sound, causing the entire cave to shake violently. Both of them collapsed at the same time, turning into dark red and golden light fragments that scattered in all directions. The clan leader resisted with all his might and blocked Ji Tianqing's capture. He shrunk his body and suddenly exerted force with his hind legs. He was about to jump up and crash into Ji Tianqing. Such a posture and attack form made him look like a toad. His jumping ability was astonishing. But at that moment, the white dragon that had been unconscious suddenly opened its eyes. He reached out his claws without any regard for his own safety and used the dragon-capturing hugging moon technique to grab the clan leader's hind legs. The clan leader, who was about to jump up, was immediately pulled back and fell to the ground with a plop. At the same time, Ji Tianqing clenched his claws and used the dragon elephant divine fist to hit the clan leader's head. Bam! With a deafening sound, the clan leader's head exploded on the spot. It was smashed into pieces, splashing lava and debris all over the sky. Its huge body also fell to the ground with a plop, causing the ground to shake as it smashed into the ground. The clan leader was severely injured. It was as if he had lost half of his life. He lay on the ground, twitching. He desperately absorbed the lava and earth fire to reform his head, but it was difficult for him to do so in a short time. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing and the white dragon made hand seals at the same time. They shot out a sacred golden light that enveloped the clan leader's body. Swish, 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 swish. The golden light split into thousands of strands and entered the clan leader's body, suppressing and sealing his divine power. After 3 short breaths, the secret sealing technique was completed. The clan leader could no longer move. He lay motionless on the ground, like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Even its head was only half condensed, making it look exceptionally ferocious. Ji Tianqing and Bai Long stopped and looked at each other with satisfied smiles on their faces. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it only took a few breaths of time. The master-disciple pair had a tacit understanding of each other, and their attacks were clean and efficient. Only then did the 6 guards outside the cave rush in after hearing the commotion. As soon as they rushed into the hall, they saw the noble and dignified patriarch lying on the ground like a corpse. Half of his head was missing. Everyone suddenly turned pale with fright and let out a cry of alarm. They pulled out their swords and rushed towards Ji Tianqing and White Dragon. White Dragon's figure flashed and rushed forward, attacking with both hands and feet. Pang pang pang. A series of muffled sounds rang out one after another, and the dazzling golden light flickered continuously. In the blink of an eye, the 6 Tribulation Realm guards were killed by the White Dragon. All of them were blasted into pieces. The cave was completely silent. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a dazzling golden light, sealing off the entrance of the passage. White Dragon stretched out his claws and picked up the miserable patriarch. The patriarch could not struggle or resist, but he opened and closed his mouth, cursing angrily. Ji Tianqing glanced at him, reached out and picked up a source stone sword, and wrote a line of earthworm-like words on the ground. If you don't want to die, and don't want the whole tribe to be buried with you, then be honest. The patriarch's one eye saw the line of crooked words on the ground, and his eyes suddenly became cold. It looked at Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon in surprise, then roared in a muffled voice, as if it was questioning who they were. Ji Tianqing and White Dragon guessed what he meant, and abandoned the body of the Earth's core cave people, and their souls left their bodies. Swish! Swish! With a flash of golden light, the 2 of them returned to their original appearance, turning into 2 handsome young men of the human clan. The patriarch's pupils suddenly shrank, and his one eye showed a strong anger, and he cursed emotionally. Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly, holding the sword in his right hand and writing 2 lines of words on the ground. Presumably, you also know that we are the martial gods of the human clan on the ground. Don't try to resist, with our strength and means, it is easy to destroy the whole tribe. After reading these 2 lines of words, the patriarch's eyes became more and more angry, and his golden eyes almost popped out. But he forced down his anger, trying to stay calm, and looked at Ji Tianqing with a questioning look. Ji Tianqing raised his hand and shot out a few golden lights, removing the seal on his right front claw. The patriarch hesitated for a moment, and then used his right front claw to take the sword, and wrote a few lines on the ground. For tens of thousands of years, my clan has lived in seclusion underground, living peacefully with the races on the ground. Why did you invade my clan's territory? Since you are of the human clan, how can you master our language? What do you want to do? Seeing this, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but smile, and said, "Ha ha ha, you are finally willing to cooperate, a good start." Bai Long also smiled and nodded, "Master's method is still useful, this guy is scared, I think there is a good show." Ji Tianqing picked up another source stone sword, and wrote on the ground, "Mastering your language is very simple, as for the method, you don't need to know. As for our purpose, of course, it is for the source stones." The patriarch was stunned for a moment, and showed an expression of "as expected," and wrote with anger, "The source stones are the divine objects of my clan, and also our food. You despicable human, don't even think about taking away my clan's source stones. Are you not afraid that my clan will fight to the death and bury you here?" After reading these few lines of words, Ji Tianqing and Bai Long both showed a playful smile. Ji Tianqing sneered and wrote, "The source stones are natural treasures, they belong to all creatures in this world, when did they become yours? Also, you have no room to bargain, and you have no room to fight back. I will give you two choices, you better think carefully before you make a decision. 1. We kill you, and kill all the people in the cave, all the source stones will belong to us. 2. Obediently listen to my orders, and hand over 80% of the source stones regularly, you and your clansmen will be safe." After writing these few lines, Ji Tianqing looked coldly at the patriarch, waiting for him to make a decision. The patriarch was so angry that his eyes almost popped out, and his entire right arm began to tremble. He looked at the words on the ground, and then looked at Ji Tianqing and Bai Long, hesitating and struggling for a long time. He raised his right arm several times, wanting to write his thoughts on the ground, but he put it down powerlessly. After a long silence, he wrote on the ground with his sword, "Despicable human, I admit that you are very strong, but I can't trust you easily. Also, I can't make a decision on my own, this matter must be approved by the high priest, deputy patriarch, and old patriarch." Obviously, the patriarch wouldn't easily trust Ji Tianqing, and he wouldn't give in just like that. He still had a trace of hope in his heart, and thought that the high priest, deputy patriarch, and old patriarch could turn the tide and reverse the situation. End of chapter. Chapter 2509. Ji Tianqing had expected that the clan leader would not give in so easily. However, he was not in a hurry at all. With a smile on his face, he waved the source stone sword and wrote 3 lines on the ground. "You don't have to be delusional. This matter is a foregone conclusion and no one can reverse it. Just now, I have secretly used the hypnotic divine spell to control your divine soul. From now on, you are my slave." After writing, Ji Tianqing sneered and put away the source stone sword. When the clan leader saw the words on the ground clearly, his pupils shrank. He looked at Ji Tianqing in horror and shock. He could not believe that Ji Tianqing could control his divine soul without him noticing. He felt that his mind was still clear and he believed that Ji Tianqing was threatening him. He could not help but curse. However, Ji Tianqing raised his hand and snapped his fingers. His 5 fingers lit up with golden light. Within the patriarch's sea of consciousness, a powerful force suddenly erupted and violently struck the patriarch's soul. He only felt a buzzing sound in his head and his consciousness became blurry. His eyes turned black and he fainted. Seeing this, Bai Long smiled proudly and praised from the bottom of his heart, "I didn't expect Master to be able to use the true God-level hypnotic divine spell with only the strength of a martial god. Moreover, Master's skills and attainments in the divine arts are still as superb as they were back then." Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "Stop flattering him. Put him back on the high platform. We have more important things to do." "Okay." Bai Long replied and threw the clan leader back on the high platform. Then, the two of them used divine spells in the hall. They shot out thousands of strands of golden light and set up a powerful sealing divine spell. After a short 15 minutes, the extreme grade void god formation with a radius of 1,000 feet was completed. Any martial god below the true god level would be sealed by the divine spell and there was no possibility of escaping. After completing the formation, their souls left their bodies and possessed the body of the Earth's core man. Ji Tianqing waved his hand to remove the golden light sealing the entrance and flew to the high platform. He cast a spell to wake up the unconscious patriarch and remove his seal. Phew! Phew! The patriarch woke up and hugged his head with a pained expression as he panted heavily. It only felt a splitting headache, and its soul became muddled, as if it was being controlled by a large hand. When it turned its head and saw Ji Tianqing, its body suddenly trembled, and its eyes were filled with awe and fear. Ji Tianqing looked at it expressionlessly and gave an order with his spiritual sense, immediately heal yourself and return to your original appearance. Through the soul enchantment divine art, he was connected to the clan leader's divine soul. They didn't need to communicate with words, they could communicate directly with their divine thoughts. When the patriarch heard his order, he instinctively laid on the stage and used his power to repair his damaged body. The black stone lamps at the four corners of the high platform were constantly emitting wisps of flame into its body. Not long after, the wounds on its body healed, and its head recondensed, returning to its original appearance. Although it still had some internal injuries, there were no flaws or abnormalities on the surface. Ji Tianqing looked up at the entrance of the cave and muttered to himself, calculating the time, the high priest and the deputy patriarch should be here by now, right? Bai Long's face was full of anticipation. He smiled maliciously and said, "Hee hee. Everything is ready, except for the east wind." However, the two of them disguised as guards and waited below the high platform for a long time, but they still didn't see the high priest and the deputy patriarch. Bai Long was a little anxious and muttered to himself, "What's going on? Did something happen?" Ji Tianqing wasn't worried. He was communicating with the patriarch with his spiritual sense, asking about the situation of the tribe. "What's your name?" The patriarch's spiritual sense was transmitted, and he respectfully replied, "Baha." Ji Tianqing asked again, "Tell me about the high priest, the deputy patriarch, the old patriarch, and the current situation of the tribe." Baha answered honestly, "The old patriarch, Baha, is my father. He has lived for more than 16,000 years and his ability has reached level 7 of the empty god realm. The high priest and the deputy patriarch are my friends who grew up with me. Their abilities are around level 5 of the empty god realm. Our tribe has a total of 1,200 people, including 100 elite guards and thousands of adult warriors. Every warrior can mine the source stone mine. In the past few days, more than 400 warriors have been sent out to mine the source stone mine in the lava sea. Only about 700 people stay in the tribe." Hearing his answer, Ji Tianqing finally understood why there were only a few hundred people in the Black Gold Mountain range. Therefore, he asked again with his spiritual sense, "Under normal circumstances, how many source stones can you mine each year?" Baha answered respectfully, "The source stone mine is very tough, so it's very difficult to mine it. Moreover, there are very few source stones, so we don't mine randomly. Under normal circumstances, we will mine once every 20 years. According to the situation in the past 2 years, we have mined more than 300 pieces of source stones each year, which can be used to forge more than 100 battle swords and sabers. Only 300 pieces of source stones." Ji Tianqing frowned, somewhat dissatisfied. The white dragon was surprised and said with joy, "Master, how big is the piece it's talking about?" "About the size of a water tank, right? That's already a lot. Think about it, a refined source stone the size of a fist is enough for you to cultivate for a few months. How many source stones can we get from refining 300 pieces of source stones a year? It's probably enough for us to cultivate in seclusion for a few decades, right?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said, what you said makes sense. If it's just for our cultivation, it's more than enough. However, if you want to use the source stones to refine divine weapons or other divine weapons, you'll need a lot of materials. Bai Long thought for a while and said with a smirk, isn't that simple? The people in the Earth's core cave have lived here for tens of thousands of years. Who knows how many source stones they have accumulated? Why don't you let Baha open the treasury and offer up all the source stones in the treasury? Won't that solve the problem? Ji Tianqing couldn't help but chuckle and say, you're smart, kid. Hee hee. Of course, I'm your resourceful star. Bai Long boasted without any modesty, revealing a proud smile. Ji Tianqing frowned and said in a deep voice, quiet, the target is coming. Bai Long immediately quieted down and looked at the cave entrance with a burning gaze, accumulating divine power in his body. After 10 breaths, 2 strong Earth's core cave people, full of divine power, passed through the passage as fast as flowing light and arrived at the cave. These 2 martial god realm Earth's core cave people were the high priest and the deputy patriarch. Just now, the 2 of them had led hundreds of warriors and rushed out of the sea of lava to find the invaders for revenge. They fought with the 3 divine beasts and paid a heavy price to force them to retreat. Both of them were injured and hurried back to report the situation to Patriarch Baha. Patriarch, we're back. Patriarch. The 2 of them strode into the cave and looked at Patriarch Baha on the high platform. They raised their front paws and saluted. End of chapter. Chapter 25:10. However, Patriarch Baha didn't respond. He just looked at the high priestess and vice patriarch expressionlessly. The 2 looked up at the platform and were about to report the situation to Patriarch Baha when they saw 2 guards standing below the platform. Both of them were stunned for a moment. Then, they shouted in unison, bastards. How dare you break into the temple and offend the patriarch? Get out. Ji Tianqing and White Dragon didn't respond. They just looked at the 2 coldly. Patriarch Baha furrowed his brows and shouted angrily, you 2 bastards, why aren't you kneeling? The high priestess and vice patriarch were stunned. They looked at each other in disbelief. They couldn't believe that Patriarch Baha would scold them in such a tone. This was something that had never happened before. Patriarch, what's wrong? The atmosphere seems a bit strange. The 2 were confused and couldn't help but talk to each other. Right at this moment, Ji Tianqing and the White Dragon raised their hands at the same time, forming 2 strange hand seals with their fingers, creating 2 mysterious divine seals. The high priestess and vice patriarch finally realized that something was wrong, but it was too late. Whoosh! A golden light flashed in the cave, and a light shield appeared out of nowhere and covered the entire hall. The high priestess and vice patriarch were suppressed by the light shield. They were under immense pressure and fell to the ground with a plop. As Ji Tianqing and White Dragon controlled the formation, the power of the formation became stronger and stronger. The golden light shield also became thicker and thicker. The high priestess and vice patriarch were forced to crawl on the ground. Their bodies were flattened, and red lava kept coming out of their noses and mouths. The 2 couldn't resist. They tried their best to raise their heads and look at Patriarch Baha with their eyes wide open. Why? Patriarch, why are you suppressing us? What did we do wrong? Why are you punishing us like this? Patriarch Baha lay on the platform and looked down at them. He said in a cold voice, because you disrespected our master. Master? Who is our master? The high priest and the deputy patriarch were both stunned. Their expressions became more and more interesting. At this time, Ji Tianqing stepped out and looked at them indifferently. He waved his hand and released rays of white light into their bodies. The 2 of them were suppressed by the formation, unable to resist at all, and unable to resist the invasion of the white light. Only then did they realize that the culprit was Ji Tianqing. Their eyes bulged out of their sockets in anger, and they began to curse hysterically. "Damned bastard, what did you do to the patriarch? Bastard, what are you trying to do? How dare you disrespect me? Are you tired of living?" However, Ji Tianqing didn't pay any attention to their roars. His hands continued to form hand seals, releasing countless white lights. Boundless spiritual energy poured into their bodies, invaded their minds, and eroded their souls. As time passed, the consciousness of the high priest and the deputy patriarch became more and more blurry, and their souls became muddled. After 100 breaths of time, their souls suffered a heavy blow and they fainted on the spot. What happened next was much simpler. Ji Tianqing continued to cast spells for another 100 breaths of time. Using the divine technique, he completely controlled the high priest and the deputy patriarch's souls. After he finished casting the spell, the white dragon walked up and kicked the two of them awake. After the high priest and the deputy patriarch woke up, their eyes were still clear and did not look out of place. But their attitudes and reactions were completely different. They were extremely respectful and fearful of Ji Tianqing. It was an irresistible sense of respect that came from the depths of their souls. Under the control of Ji Tianqing's spiritual sense, the high priest and the deputy patriarch stood obediently in the hall, waiting for orders. Ji Tianqing cast another spell to deactivate the divine array, and the golden light barrier disappeared. The cave returned to silence, as if nothing had happened. The patriarch, the deputy patriarch, and the high priest have all surrendered. Only the old patriarch is left. Ji Tianqing murmured and used his spiritual sense to order the high priest, "Go and invite the old patriarch here. Tell him that the patriarch wants to discuss something important with him." The high priest naturally obeyed. He bowed respectfully to show that he obeyed, then turned and left the cave. Everyone waited for a few minutes before the high priest brought the old patriarch Baal into the cave. Baal had been meditating before, and he had just heard the news of the enemy invasion and the heavy casualties of the guards. He was worried. When he heard that the high priest had invited him to discuss something important, he rushed over without hesitation. When he entered the cave, he was still anxious and worried. Seeing that the patriarch, the high priest, and the deputy patriarch were all there, his heart sank. He had a bad feeling. However, just as he stood still in the cave, before he could speak, a bright golden light lit up around him. Swoosh! A dazzling light barrier appeared, covering a radius of 1,000 feet and suppressing him. A terrifying suppressive force came from all directions, suppressing it to the ground and causing it to tremble uncontrollably. "Baal, what are you doing?" The old patriarch Baal was furious. He glared at Patriarch Baal and shouted loudly, struggling with all his might. Patriarch Baal was expressionless. Under Ji Tianqing's command, the high priest and the deputy patriarch threw themselves at Baal and pressed him to the ground. Baal was even more furious. He cursed the high priest and the deputy patriarch harshly. But all of this was in vain. Ji Tianqing cast a divine technique and quickly made Baal faint. When he woke up, his soul was also controlled by Ji Tianqing, and he became a puppet at Ji Tianqing's disposal. At this point, the four leaders and powerhouses of the Earth's core cave were all under Ji Tianqing's control. The four of them stood respectfully in the cave, listening to Ji Tianqing's orders. Ji Tianqing ordered Patriarch Baal, the high priest, and the deputy patriarch, "From today onwards, the human race of the Earth's core cave is under my control. Send out all warriors to mine the source stone vein. Leave 80% of the source stone vein to me. The remaining 20% is for your use." Patriarch Baal and the other two respectfully bowed and said, "Yes," in unison. Then, the three of them bowed and left the cave to carry out the order. Ji Tianqing looked at Patriarch Baal and ordered, "Take me to your treasury and take out all the source stones." Baal did not hesitate to say, "Yes," and led him and the white dragon out of the cave, rushing to the treasury not far away. The treasury was deep in the Black Gold Mountain range, located inside the mountain. There was only one passage in and out, and it was heavily guarded. Apart from Patriarch Baal, the high priest, and the deputy patriarch, no one else could enter. Baal led the way in front, so naturally, there was no obstruction. The guards guarding the entrance were surprised when they saw Ji Tianqing and the white dragon appear. They did not understand why Patriarch Baal would bring 2 guards into the treasury. This was something that had never happened before. But they could only think about it. They did not dare to open their mouths and stop them. Chapter 25:11. The Earth's core cave. Man's treasury was actually a cave. The cave with a radius of 1,000 feet was pitch black, and there was only one exit with a divine array. There was no shape or pattern in the cave, and there were very few traces of man-made excavation. On the left side, there were a few hills piled up, all of which were rough ores, and a rough aura came from them. The big ones were the size of millstones, and the small ones were only the size of fists. Some were black and gold, some were black and purple, some were pure black, and some were black and red. The main composition of these ores was naturally pure black origin stones. But there were more impurities in the ores, and they contained gems and metals of various colors. Ji Tianqing was not worried. As long as he used the refining techniques of the human race to carefully smelt these origin stones, he would be able to obtain pure origin stones. He looked at the right side of the cave and saw that the ground was piled up with long black knives, axes, spears, and other weapons. Although those weapons were very simple, there was no trace of delicacy or magnificence. But when he saw more than 3,000 origin stone weapons piled up on the ground, he could not help but smile. So many origin stones are enough to solve our future cultivation problems, and we can also refine many divine weapons and equipment. As he spoke, he opened his spatial ring and put all the origin stone weapons and ores into it. White Dragon was excited, and his eyes shone with excitement as he rubbed his hands. The old Patriarch Bar was a little distressed, but he did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. He even took the initiative to help Ji Tianqing load the ores and origin stone weapons. Not long after, Ji Tianqing put all the ores and weapons in the treasury into the spatial ring. Then, he left the treasury with satisfaction and returned to the Earth's core temple with White Dragon and Bar. Patriarch Baha, the high priest, and the deputy patriarch had not returned yet. They were busy mobilizing the warriors in the clan and assigning them the task of mining the origin stone mine. Ji Tianqing waited for a while before Patriarch Baha rushed back to the temple. So, Ji Tianqing and White Dragon removed their disguises and showed their true faces. Baha and Baha, father and son, suddenly opened their eyes wide and stared at them carefully. Ji Tianqing pointed to White Dragon beside him and said to the father and son, "I'm very busy. I may not come to the Magma Sea in the future. This is my disciple, White Dragon. He will represent me to contact you in the future. He will pass on my orders. He will be in charge of the origin stone mine." Bar and Baha were stunned for a moment. They quickly bowed and said, "Yes, sir." Ji Tianqing looked at Bai Long and said earnestly, "Bai Long, Master still has some matters to attend to and will be leaving soon. You stay here and learn the language of the human race in the underground cave as soon as possible so that you can communicate with them. Also, you have to supervise them as they mine the origin stones. If there are any abnormalities, report to me immediately." The White Dragon was lively. He was a person who could not stand loneliness. He had long since grown tired of the days of seclusion and wanted to find something to do. He was looking forward to this mission from the bottom of his heart. "These toads, I guarantee that I'll make them obedient. I will collect all the origin stones they have to offer every month. I won't let them cheat." Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and said, "White Dragon, the Earth's core cave people have been living in seclusion for tens of thousands of years. They are not a cruel and warlike race. If you can adjust your mentality and become friends with them, you can make them work even harder. If the situation allows, don't be too harsh on them. This is the way to go in the long run. White Dragon nodded thoughtfully and said with a smile, yes, White Dragon understands. Master has always been kind and benevolent. The Earth's core cave people are lucky to have met you. Ji Tianqing just smiled and did not say anything. He turned and walked out of the cave. White Dragon and Baha sent him out of the Earth's core temple and flew out of the Black Gold Mountain range. After Ji Tianqing's figure disappeared in the magma sea, White Dragon returned to the Earth's core temple. Next, he asked Baha and Baha to teach him the language and writing of the Earth's core cave people. Ji Tianqing flew all the way up and left the magma sea without any obstructions. 15 minutes later, he returned to the hidden dragon abyss and found Blue Kun, Qianyu, Black Dragon, and the Golden Mountain King. The Golden Mountain King and the Xitigarbha divine armor were injured. The 3 divine beasts were safe and sound, but they were also recuperating. Ji Tianqing asked the Golden Mountain King and found out the whole story. It turned out that not long after he and White Dragon sneaked into the Black Gold Mountain range, the High Priest and the Deputy Patriarch led a few hundred warriors and rushed out of the magma sea. At that time, the Golden Mountain King, the Xitigarbha divine armor, and the 3 divine beasts were hiding in a cave on the cliff. The High Priest and the Deputy Patriarch used a secret technique to detect their aura and surrounded the cave. Therefore, the 2 sides engaged in a fierce battle. The 3 divine beasts showed their power. Not only did they injure the High Priest and the Deputy Patriarch, they also slaughtered a large number of the Earth's core cave people. Unfortunately, the Golden Mountain King and the Xitigarbha divine armor were weak and suffered heavy injuries in the battle. In the end, the Earth's core cave people were defeated and fled back into the magma sea. The Golden Mountain King, the Xitigarbha divine armor, and the 3 divine beasts stayed in the cave to recuperate. After the Golden Mountain King finished speaking, Qianyu could not wait to ask Ji Tianqing, "Old Ji, did your plan go well? Where's White Dragon? Is he injured or captured by the Earth's core cave people?" The Black Dragon also came over and asked with concern, "Old Ji, did your plan fail? Don't worry, we'll go back with you and avenge White Dragon." Ji Tianqing glared at them and said angrily, "Don't you trust me that much? How can I fail when I'm the one who did it? The 4 martial gods in the Earth's core cave have all been controlled by me and have become my puppets. I asked White Dragon to stay in the tribe and supervise them in mining the Dawn Stone mine." The Golden Mountain King, the Xitigarbha divine armor, Qianyu, and the Black Dragon were shocked and exclaimed in disbelief. "No way! It's only been less than an hour. Old Ji, are you too strong or are the Earth's core cave people too weak? Controlling the 4 powerhouses is equivalent to controlling the entire Earth's core cave people. Old Ji, you're too powerful. From now on, we'll have an endless supply of Dawn Stones, right?" Seeing that everyone was so excited, Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. "That's right. The entire Earth's core cave people's tribe and the Dawn Stones in the magma sea all belong to us. This matter ends here. I have more important things to do. We should leave." The Golden Mountain King, the Xitigarbha divine armor, Qianyu, and the Black Dragon did not object and left with him. Only Lan Kun refused to leave. He insisted on going to the Earth's core cave people's tribe to meet White Dragon. Chapter 25:12. Ji Tianqing knew that Lan Kun and Bai Long were very close. They did not want to be separated. He did not stop Lan Kun. Instead, he agreed to let it stay and help Bai Long manage things. Therefore, Lan Kun flew into the magma sea with joy to meet the White Dragon. Ji Tianqing brought Golden Mountain King, Xitigarbha divine armor, Qianyu, and Black Dragon out of the lava ocean. They flew up and soon flew out of the hidden dragon abyss. After returning to the ground, Ji Tianqing took out the sword of burial of heaven and let Golden Mountain King and Xitigarbha divine armor enter the sword's world to heal their injuries. At the same time, he took out a few dawn stones and gave them to Golden Mountain King. After Golden Mountain King's injuries were healed, he used the earth spirit's smelting method to refine the dawn stones. After that, Ji Tianqing took out the small golden tower and brought Qian Yu and Black Dragon back to Jiutian 10 Absolutes Tower. Swoosh! On the 5th floor of Jiutian 10 Absolutes Tower. After a flash of white light, Ji Tianqing and the 2 divine beasts appeared on the Fei God altar. He brought the 2 divine beasts into the 6th floor and flew into the distorted spacetime. On the way, he said to Qian Yu and Black Dragon, "I know that you don't want to cultivate in seclusion. It's boring to cultivate in seclusion for so many years. However, the enemy we are facing is too powerful. We have to do our best to increase our strength." Qian Yu and the Black Dragon saw his solemn expression and sincere words, so they nodded to show that they understood. "Old Ji, we understand what you mean. We also know what's important. Old Ji, don't worry. We will cultivate hard and become stronger." Seeing that the 2 of them were so sensible, Ji Tianqing smiled with relief. He took out 4 dawn stone swords and gave them to Qian Yu and Black Dragon. He said, "Use these dawn stone swords to cultivate. The divine power in them will be enough for you to cultivate in seclusion for many years. After I refine and purify the origin stone mine, I will give you pure origin stones." Qian Yu and Black Dragon took the dawn stone swords and said goodbye to him. Then they turned around and left. They entered the depths of the distorted spacetime and went into seclusion. Ji Tianqing continued to fly forward. He found Yun Yao and Ji Ke separately and gave them some origin stone weapons. The 2 of them were cultivating in seclusion, consuming ordinary cultivation resources. Their progress was extremely slow. With an origin stone as a source of divine power, their cultivation progress would be even faster. After doing all this, Ji Tianqing stopped to rest. He sat cross-legged in the distorted spacetime. His spirit entered Kenshin's tomb and entered the divine weapon pavilion through the tombstone on the wilderness. In the middle of the magnificent divine weapon pavilion, there stood a bronze cauldron that was 30 meters tall. It was the 9 Heavens Divine Cauldron. Under Ji Tianqing's control, the 9 Heaven Divine Cauldron slowly left the ground and flew out of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Shwa! A moment later, the 9 Heavens Divine Cauldron shrunk to the size of a fingernail and flew out of Ji Tianqing's body. The Divine Cauldron floated in front of him and slowly spun. It gradually grew larger and returned to its original appearance. Ji Tianqing's spirit left Kenshin's tomb and returned to his body. He looked at the 9 Heavens Divine Cauldron with a burning gaze and muttered to himself, "9 Heavens Divine Cauldron, you are a divine cauldron that can refine anything. Although this origin stone has never appeared in the world, with your power, you should be able to refine it easily." After saying that, he raised his palms and formed a divine seal. He released surging astral divine fire and injected it into the 9 Heavens Divine Cauldron. Shwa, shwa, shwa. The patterns on the 9 Heavens Divine Cauldron immediately lit up with silver light. The divine array in the cauldron was activated, and surging astral fire immediately ignited. Ji Tianqing continued to cast the spell for half an hour. When the temperature in the 9 Heavens Divine Cauldron reached its peak, he took out 2 millstone-sized origin stone ores and threw them into the divine cauldron. The 2 ores were black gold in color. 80% of them were black origin stones, and 20% were metallic impurities. The ores had to be refined to remove the impurities and become pure origin stones. Under Ji Tianqing's control, the array in the 9 Heavens Divine Cauldron sped up. The 2 black gold ores flew around in the cauldron, enduring the burning of the astral divine fire. Soon, 2 hours passed. The 2 incomparably hard ores were burned red and gradually melted. 4 hours later, the ores were burned until they were crystal clear, and golden liquid kept flowing out. The impurities in the ores were removed continuously, and they became pure. The size of the ores also gradually shrank. Ji Tianqing continued to cast the spell. It took him half a day to refine the 2 ores. Shwa. When he cast the spell to open the 9 heavens divine cauldron, a surge of astral divine fire wrapped around the 2 black origin stones and flew out of the cauldron. The ores that were originally millstone-sized had shrunk by 20%. They became rounder and looked like 2 black stone balls. Ji Tianqing observed carefully for a moment and found that there were no impurities in the stone balls. They were the purest origin stones. He looked into the 9 heavens divine cauldron and saw a wash-basin-sized metal ball at the bottom. There was no doubt that it was the metal impurities in the ores. After being refined by the divine cauldron, all the metal impurities flowed out and condensed into this golden ball. Very good, the 9 heavens divine cauldron did not disappoint me. Ji Tianqing was very satisfied with this result. Not only did the 9 heavens divine cauldron purify the origin stones, it also refined the metal out of the ores. There was no waste at all. Ji Tianqing picked up the golden ball and observed it carefully for a moment. He could not help but smile in relief. It's actually the extremely precious earth fire divine gold, the best material to refine divine artifacts. This surprised him a little, and his heart was filled with anticipation. He already saw hope. Soon, he would be able to realize another plan. Therefore, he took out more than 10 ores and threw them into the 9 heavens divine cauldron to refine and purify them. Half a day later, the refining was completed. Ji Tianqing obtained more than 10 pure origin stones, as well as 5 types of metals and gems. For the next 3 months, he kept casting spells and using the 9 heavens divine cauldron to refine the ores. After 3 months of hard work, he obtained more than 1,000 pure origin stones and more than 30 types of divine-grade metals and gems. It was obvious that the impurities in the ores were divine-grade materials. In the sea of lava, only divine-grade origin stones, metals and gems could be preserved. Some of the 1,000 origin stones were as big as a wash basin, while others were as big as a water tank. If the size of a fist was the standard, the 1,000 origin stones could be divided into more than 20,000 pieces. With so many origin stones, Ji Tianqing could cultivate in seclusion for 1,000 years. However, the number of ores that he had plundered from the human tribe's treasury in the Earth's core cave was 20 times more than that. If he refined all of them, he could obtain 500,000 standard-sized origin stones. This did not include the thousands of origin stone weapons that he had plundered. If he refined all of them into standard origin stones, the number would increase by another 100,000. At the thought of this, Ji Tianqing was overwhelmed with excitement. His eyes were filled with anticipation. With so many origin stones, not only can we reach the peak of the martial god realm, but we can also be fully armed. Each of us will have a set of origin stone divine artifacts. In the next few hundred years, we will not lack cultivation resources. Chapter 25:13. With the massive amount of dawn stones, Ji Tianqing was filled with confidence and anticipation for the future. He put away the 9th heaven cauldron and went to look for Yun Yao, Ji Ku, Xian Yu, and the black dragon. The dawn stones he refined in the past 3 months were divided into 5 portions. He kept 1 portion for himself and gave the other 4 to the others. With the large amount of dawn stones, they would not lack cultivation resources for the next few hundred years. After arranging this matter, Ji Tianqing finally had some free time and began to cultivate. Currently, he was cultivating the Sword Soul Dao level 9, which was also the pinnacle of the Sword Dao. With the help of the dawn stones, he could continuously absorb divine power and increase his strength several times faster. Time passed quickly in the distorted spacetime. Unknowingly, 30 years had passed. Ji Tianqing's strength had increased by 5 times. Naturally, his cultivation level had risen to the 4th level of the martial god realm. Moreover, he absorbed endless divine power from the dawn stones, causing the attribute of his divine power to change. He originally had a special divine power that merged the 5 elements, lightning, and light energy. Now, his divine power had the spatial attribute, which made it even more mysterious and powerful. His control over the power of space had also reached a higher level. The most obvious change was that his teleportation distance had increased by 50%. In the past, when he was traveling, he could teleport more than 200 miles each time and he would not feel tired for 2 days. Now, he could teleport more than 400 miles each time. If he was in a life-or-death situation, he could use the teleportation divine art to save his life, and he could travel 4,000 miles in an instant. Of course, this trump card could not be used repeatedly. It could only be used once every few hours. But even so, it was still powerful enough to shock everyone. Ordinary martial gods, even the emissary of the divine ruins, Fairy Yuqing, and General Fu Long were not as powerful. Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. He muttered to himself, "I've been in seclusion for 30 years, but only 7 months have passed in the outside world. I wonder how Bai Long is doing in the Earth's core cave." Therefore, he got up and left the divine tower to send a message to Bai Long. He waited patiently on the barren mountain outside the Yin-Yang secret realm for 15 minutes before he received Bai Long's message. In the jade slip, the white dragon reported in detail the situation of the past 7 months. Reporting to Master, Disciple and Lan Kun are fine. Don't worry. Although there had been some twists and turns in the past half a year, and many people in the Earth's core cave had sensed that something was wrong and had joined forces to resist and escape. However, Ba and his son, as well as the high priest, listened to his disciples' words and did not dare to disobey him. Under the leadership and command of the disciples, they worked hard to maintain the peace of the tribe, resolve internal conflicts, and suppress the resistance of the people in the cave. Now that everything was on the right track, the mining of origin stones was progressing with each passing day. This disciple has given them a task. Every half a year, they will be counted and handed in origin stones according to the rules. Half a month ago, this disciple had just collected over 300 origin stone mines and was about to ask Lan Kun to deliver them to you. After listening to White Dragon's report, Ji Tianqing pondered for a moment before replying. "White Dragon, of course I'm not worried about you. At present, we have only just taken control of the human race in the underground cave. The situation has just stabilized, so you still need to be more vigilant. For the first few years, you can collect origin stones every half a year. After 10 years, you can extend the time limit to 1 year. You can keep the origin stone mines for now. When I need them, I will send you a message and ask Lan Kun to deliver them." After sending the message, Ji Tianqing summoned the small golden pagoda and returned to the divine pagoda. He returned to the distorted spacetime and summoned the Sword of Burial of Heaven. He personally entered the Sword's world to check on the Golden Mountain King's situation. Whoosh! With a flash of golden light, Ji Tianqing appeared in the sky above Peaceful Earth City. Under the bright sun, Peaceful Earth City, which had a radius of 15 kilometers, was a scene of peace and tranquility. The city was surrounded by majestic walls, and rows of dazzling palaces and tall buildings had been built in the city. Tens of thousands of Earth Spirit race citizens lived and worked peacefully in the city. Ji Tianqing looked towards the center of the city and saw a golden octagonal cauldron standing in the middle of the city square. It was about 30 meters tall and was shining brightly under the sunlight. The plaza under the octagonal furnace had been modified into a large formation, and the ground was covered in patterns and diagrams. Nearly 800 strong Earth Spirit warriors were scattered in 8 directions of the magic formation, concentrating on activating the magic formation. Inside the golden octagonal furnace, a raging fire burned and exuded a terrifying heat. The Golden Mountain King, carrying a golden warhammer on his shoulder, stood above the octagonal furnace and used some kind of secret technique to control the flames and the formation inside the furnace. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing smiled in satisfaction and murmured, "It seems that the Golden Mountain King's injuries have recovered." He descended from the sky and landed above the octagonal furnace, arriving beside the Golden Mountain King. The Golden Mountain King hurriedly stopped casting and bowed respectfully to him. "This humble king greets the young master." After saying this, he waved at a group of people not far away. A 4-foot-tall, short but strong young man hurriedly rushed over and bowed to Ji Tianqing to greet him. "Ai Luo greets the young master." Ji Tianqing was startled. After looking at him for a while, he remembered that he was the Golden Mountain King's son, Prince Ai Luo of the Earth Spirit race. He nodded with a smile and said, "I didn't expect that Ai Luo would have grown up after 9 years. You look just like your father." Ai Luo was excited. He beat his chest with his left hand and said excitedly, "It's my greatest honor that the young master still remembers me. Don't worry, young master. I will definitely become a strong warrior like my father and follow you with unparalleled loyalty." Ji Tianqing nodded with a smile and said a few words of encouragement. The Golden Mountain King waved his hand and asked Ai Luo to leave. He then went to control the formation and flames of the octagonal furnace. He clasped his hands to Ji Tianqing and asked, "Young master, why are you here? Do you have any orders for me?" Ji Tianqing slightly nodded and said, "I'm here to check on your condition. Since your injuries have healed, I don't need to worry anymore. By the way, what are you all doing?" The Golden Mountain King smiled proudly and explained excitedly, "Young master, after my injuries have healed, I've been refining the Source Stone with all my might. This is the most powerful and sacred treasure of my race. It's called the Divine Earth Furnace. It's not a divine artifact, but it's made by gathering the strength of my entire race and using more than 50 types of metals. We use a secret technique to activate the Divine Earth Furnace. It can gather the power of the earth and use it to refine ores and metals. It can also be used to refine the most perfect weapons and magic treasures. We've already refined and purified the Source Stone that you gave me. Now, I'm using the Divine Earth Furnace and the Source Stone to forge weapons and magic treasures." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing looked pleased and asked, "You haven't reached the God realm and don't have a divine artifact. But you can use a secret technique to refine Source Stones. That's incredible. How's the forging going? When will you succeed?" Chapter 25:14. Using origin stones to refine divine weapons was what Ji Tianqing cared about the most. Because this was the plan he was going to carry out next. Golden Mountain King nodded and said excitedly, "Luckily, I have worked hard and have not let you down. 3 days ago, I have finally succeeded in making my first Dawn Stone weapon." As he spoke, he took out a black war hammer from his infinite space ring. The war hammer did not look fancy, but it was very delicate and contained a strong sense of weight and power. The handle of the war hammer was as thick as a child's arm and was about 4 feet long. It was as tall as Golden Mountain King. The war hammer was as big as a wicker basket. One end was round and the other end was shaped like a shuttle. The surface of the war hammer was clear and smooth, as if it was naturally made and nurtured by the earth. Ji Tianqing took the Dawn Stone war hammer and looked at it carefully. He could not help but praise, "Very good. Golden Mountain King, you have done very well. This is a finished divine weapon, but it is also a blank piece of paper. There are no decorations on it and it has the possibility of increasing its power. For example, if you add a powerful holy array on the war hammer, you can increase its grade and make it more effective and powerful." The Jin Shan King quickly nodded and explained, "You're right, young master. That's why I didn't dare to add the formation without your permission. After all, I am only a martial sage. If I add a holy array, it will be a waste and lower the grade of the war hammer. He paused for a while and said embarrassedly, originally, I wanted to make an Dawn Stone Divine Sword for you. Unfortunately, I do not have enough experience and did not dare to try it. I chose the war hammer that I am most confident in. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, this is not a problem. I already have the Burial of Heaven Divine Sword. There is no need to make another weapon for me. You can make a war hammer first. If you use it to make weapons, you will be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. When Golden Mountain King heard this, he was surprised and asked in disbelief, Master, you mean? I will use this war hammer. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. That's right. Not only is it for you to use, I'm also giving it to you. The Golden Mountain King was flattered. He waved his hand and said, no, no, no. This divine artifact is too precious. Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said with a chuckle, I said I'm giving it to you, so it's yours. Don't decline it again. However, I will first add some divine level seals on your warhammer to make it even more effective and powerful. In terms of material, it is a true divinity level treasure. For it to be so natural and unpolished is just too much of a pity. The Golden Mountain King became even more excited. He quickly bowed and said sincerely, thank you for giving me the divine weapon and adding the restrictive spell on my war hammer. I am very grateful. From now on, I will do my best to serve you for the rest of my life. Ji Tianqing nodded with a smile and began to add a divine array to the war hammer. The war hammer floated in the air, flickering with black light. His hands formed a divine art as he continued to release divine power and golden light. They formed divine seals that were attached to the war hammer. The Jinshan King was dazzled by such a mysterious technique. He was fascinated by it. After an hour, Ji Tianqing added 22 divine level seals on the war hammer. However, this was not the end. He cast a spell and released many colorful thunderbolts, which formed a divine seal and attached it to the war hammer. As a result, the divine power and 24 divine level seals were added to the divine stone war hammer. This war hammer had reached the peak of the Einherjar level divine weapons. When he finished casting the spell, there were many golden and purple patterns on the surface of the war hammer, which made it even more mysterious. He held the war hammer and handed it to the Golden Mountain King. He smiled and said, this will be your weapon from now on. It can be used to kill enemies and also to refine weapons. I hope you won't disgrace it. The Golden Mountain King reached out his hands and took the war hammer solemnly. He then bowed deeply. Don't worry, young master. I won't let you down, nor will I disgrace the glory of this divine hammer. After thinking for a while, he tried to ask, by the way, young master, such an extraordinary divine weapon should have a name. Please give it a name. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, indeed, it should have a name. How about Thor's hammer? The Golden Mountain King's eyes lit up. He nodded excitedly and said, good name. It suits the attributes of this divine hammer very well. Thank you for giving it a name. From now on, this Thor's hammer will be the most precious divine weapon of our tribe. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, yes, use it well. Since you can refine dawn stones and refine divine weapons with them, I have a task for you. The Golden Mountain King put away the Thor's hammer solemnly and said expectantly, please give me your orders, young master. Ji Tianqing already had a plan. He said, refine 3 sets of armor for me, Yao Yao, and Ku. Refine a pair of divine swords for Yao Yao and a divine spear for Ku. After saying that, he took out 50 dawn stones from his infinite space ring and gave them to the Golden Mountain King. If there are any dawn stones left after the refining, refine a few more divine swords and divine armors as backups. The Golden Mountain King hurriedly kept the 50 dawn stones and said solemnly, don't worry, young master. I will complete the task as soon as possible. However, I am still weak. The divine weapon I refine is like a piece of white paper. Young master, you will have to add restrictions on it personally. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, of course. Next, you will carry out this task first. If everything goes well, I have a more difficult task for you after you complete this task. The Golden Mountain King was interested. His eyes lit up and he asked expectantly, young master, what task? Ji Tianqing smiled and said calmly, use a large number of dawn stones to refine a divine battleship. Hearing this, the Golden Mountain King's eyes widened and his blood boiled. He was so excited that his face turned red and his body trembled. He said in a choked voice, young master, are you really going to entrust me with such a sacred and great task? Do you really trust me so much? Refine a divine battleship that can travel through the void and traverse the Milky Way. This is a dream that I have never dared to dream of. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He patted the Golden Mountain King's shoulder and encouraged him, be confident. I believe you can do it. The Golden Mountain King's blood boiled again. He was so excited that his body trembled. He nodded and said, yes, since young master trusts me so much, I will work hard until my death. It's not that serious. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a smile, well, you can carry out the task now. I will come to you if I need anything. After saying that, he left the sword world in a flash. The Golden Mountain King stood in the same place. He was excited for a long time before he gradually calmed down. Not long after, he immersed himself in refining weapons again. This time, he was more serious and worked harder than before. Chapter 25:15. Ji Tianqing returned to the distorted spacetime and began the next step of his plan. He did not put away the sword of burial of heaven. Instead, he summoned the ninth heaven cauldron. Then, he began to activate the formation in the divine cauldron and ignited the astral divine fire. Half an hour later, the temperature in the divine cauldron reached its peak. The astral divine fire also surged to its peak. Therefore, he took out a large number of origin stones and placed them into the divine cauldron. He also placed the sword of burial of heaven inside. Without a doubt, he wanted to use the divine cauldron to refine the sword of burial of heaven. He wanted to fuse the origin stones into the sword of burial of heaven to increase the grade and power of the divine sword. Currently, the sword of burial of heaven was only a low-grade martial god divine weapon. According to the god's classification of divine weapons, this was only a low-grade void god divine weapon. However, Ji Tianqing believed that after the origin stones were fused into the sword of burial of heaven, the quality of the sword of burial of heaven would increase by leaps and bounds. It would definitely surpass the void god level and reach the true god level. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Ji Tianqing stared at the ninth heaven cauldron intently. He formed a divine seal with both hands and continuously used the astral divine fire and the golden light divine seal. The ninth heaven cauldron's formation sped up and began to melt the origin stones and the sword of burial of heaven. This process was very long and would definitely take a long time. However, Ji Tianqing was not in a hurry. He methodically cast his spells to refine the weapon. 1 month, 3 months, 8 months. A year passed quickly. The origin stones had melted. The sword of burial of heaven had also melted into a dark red metallic liquid. Ji Tianqing focused on casting his refining method and fusing the two together. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. 5 years passed quickly. The origin stones were all fused into the sword of burial of heaven, causing its material to change. Its grade also reached the true god level. However, this was not the end. Ji Tianqing continued to cast his divine art and added true god formations and restrictions to the sword of burial of heaven. 1 ray, 2 rays, 5 rays, 9 rays. 10 years later, when Ji Tianqing successfully added the 36th restriction, the refining was finally completed. He stopped casting and recuperated for half a month. The burial of Heaven's sword was in the divine cauldron. After being tempered by the divine fire of the stars, it finally took shape. Shua! Ji Tianqing raised his hand and shot out a golden light, activating the ninth heaven divine cauldron. The sword of burial heaven flew out of the cauldron and floated in front of him, shining with a cold light. On the surface, the burial of heaven was still pitch black, simple, and cold. It hadn't changed much. However, the truth was that the burial of heaven's sword had already been reborn into an origin stone divine sword. The sword became longer and wider, reaching a length of more than 4 feet and the width of a palm. Thousands of exquisite patterns had been added to the blade and hilt of the sword, making it even more mysterious and domineering. Anyone who saw the sword of burial of heaven would be shocked and terrified. Ji Tianqing stretched out his hands and held the sword of burial of heaven in his palms. After carefully examining it for a moment, he smiled in satisfaction. "Old friend, congratulations on returning to the true God level. You can roam the galaxy again." As he spoke, the voice of the burial of heaven immediately rang out in his mind. "In the future, when I encounter the Heaven Punisher's battleships, I will be able to cut them into pieces like cutting vegetables. Even the dragon subduing general will not be able to block my sharpness." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He said in a playful tone, "Don't worry. We will be able to take our revenge very soon. Even if the Heaven Punisher doesn't dare to make a comeback, I will find them for revenge." At this moment, a fiery red figure sped over from afar. Ji Tianqing put away the sword of burial of heaven and turned around. He saw Ji Ku, dressed in a fiery red dress, rushing over with a straight face. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Ji Ku landed in front of him. She could not wait to say, "Big brother Tianqing, something has happened." "What?" Ji Tianqing immediately frowned. He placed his hands on her shoulders and asked in a serious tone, "Ku, don't be anxious. Tell me slowly. What happened?" Ji Ku organized her thoughts and explained, "I just ended my seclusion a few days ago. I left the godly pagoda and went to the Luoshui god nation to deal with government affairs. Just now, Little White sent me a communication jade slip. He said that something has happened to the human race in the Earth's core. I know that you were in seclusion in the godly pagoda and could not receive Little White's message. You must not know about this. I did not want to disturb your cultivation, so I sent Little White a message to ask him what had happened. I could help him solve it. However, Little White refused to tell me the details. He said that you had to go personally." Ji Tianqing immediately frowned. "He also sent me a message saying that the human race's situation in the Earth's core has stabilized. It has only been 2 months and something has happened again. Why do I have to go and solve it? Could it be that Baer and his son and the High Priest want to break away from my control? That shouldn't be the case. With their strength, how could they resolve the hypnotic divine art?" Ji Ku also frowned and said worriedly, "Brother Tianqing, we all know Little White's personality. He has always been confident and arrogant. If he could solve it himself, he would not trouble you. So I think that he must have encountered something troublesome." Ji Tianqing no longer hesitated. He nodded and said, "Yes, after I subdued the human race in the Earth's core, I never went back. I will take this opportunity to go and see what is going on." Ji Ku hurriedly took his arm and said in a firm tone, "I want to go too." Ji Tianqing thought for a while. Even if the sea of lava was dangerous, it was not a threat to him and Ji Ku. So, he nodded in agreement. The two left the godly pagoda together and rushed to the north of the Heaven's End god nation. After a day and a half, the two arrived at their destination and entered the hidden dragon abyss. Flying along the hidden dragon abyss, the two of them reached a depth of over 1,000 miles and entered the lava ocean. Naturally, the journey was smooth. When the human race guards saw them, they did not dare to stop them. Ji Ku was already a LV3 martial god and had inherited the divine path inheritance of the divine bird. She had become a typical fire element martial god. No matter how dangerous the sea of lava was, it was not a threat to her. She even traveled through the sea of lava like a fish in water. She was very comfortable. Half an hour later, the two entered the Earth's core temple deep in the Black Gold Mountain range. When they entered the cave, Bai Long, Chief Baha, and the High Priest were discussing something important. The atmosphere was serious and heavy. Seeing that Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku had arrived, Bai Long's eyes immediately lit up, and he hurriedly came up to greet them. Disciple greets Master and Mistress Mingyue. Ji Ku was stunned. Her face flushed red. She glared at Bai Long and said angrily, "Little Bai, don't talk nonsense." Back then, she and Bai Long had followed Kenshin. They were Kenshin's most trusted and closest people. At that time, White Dragon was also a divine monarch like her. He addressed her very intimately and called her Bright Moon. But now, Ji Ku's identity had changed. Bai Long showed a teasing smile and raised his eyebrows. Master's wife, Master and Master's wife have tacitly agreed to this matter, why can't you let it go? I don't dare to laugh at you. I'm sincerely happy for you. You're still talking. Ji Ku glared at him again. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said seriously, Bai Long, what is so serious that I have to deal with it personally? End of chapter. Chapter 25:16. When it came to serious matters, Bai Long immediately put away his joking attitude. He pointed at Ba Er and his son and explained to Ji Tianqing, Master, the matter is like this. Ba Er and his son have been doing their best to carry out the task, and the task of mining the source stone mine is also progressing steadily. However, just 5 days ago, there was an accident in this area. 6 soldiers in charge of mining suddenly disappeared. When Baha Er received the news, he sent 20 guards to check the situation. Unexpectedly, half of the 20 guards also disappeared. The remaining 10 guards hurriedly retreated and came back to report the news. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing knew that there was an accident in the mining process, and not something wrong with Ba Er and his son. He frowned and asked, I heard that the magma sea is very dangerous. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to investigate. Bai Long, have you investigated? Why did those soldiers and guards disappear? Did they encounter some fierce beasts or strange beasts? Bai Long nodded, then quickly shook his head and explained, Master, after I received the news, I knew that the matter was serious, so I personally took Ba Er and his son to investigate the situation. I searched the area and didn't find any traces of fierce beasts or traps. However, I found a black hole that seemed to be hiding some kind of formation that contained powerful divine power. However, I and Ba Er didn't dare to enter rashly, and we couldn't investigate the formation in the black hole. I vaguely felt that the black hole might involve some kind of secret, so I quickly sent a message to Master's wife and asked you to come in person. Ji Tianqing understood the ins and outs of the matter and nodded slightly, Bai Long, you did well in this matter. The magma sea is located in the depths of the Earth's core, and the human race in the Earth's core has existed since ancient times. Since a black hole appeared in the magma sea, perhaps there is a formation in divine power, it is most likely related to ancient times. This matter is definitely not a small matter. There is no time to lose. Let Ba Er and his son take charge of the overall situation and don't affect the others' mining. Bring me there to see what's going on. Bai Long obeyed and used the human language of the Earth's core cave to warn Ba Er and his son. Then, he led Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku out of the cave. After the 3 of them flew out of the Earth's core divine palace, they shuttled through the sea of lava and flew straight towards the north. The magma ocean was not flat, and the terrain was also undulating. But in general, the southern terrain was higher, and the magma sea was shallower. The further north they went, the lower the terrain became, and the deeper they went into the Earth's core. The magma sea also became deeper. Ji Tianqing and the other two shuttled through the magma at lightning speed. They were getting closer and closer to the core of the earth. Unknowingly, a day had passed. The three of them flew for over 200,000 miles and arrived at the depth of 2,000 miles, 400 miles under the lava. In such an environment, not only did they have to endure the terrifying heat, they also had to endure the suppression of the endless magma. The pressure had already reached an unimaginable level. Even if a towering mountain with a radius of several hundred miles were to descend from the sky, it would be nothing more than this. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and White Dragon were strong enough to travel freely in this area. Ji Ku was immersed in the endless lava. His divine body could not help but absorb the power of fire. He did not feel uncomfortable at all. She looked around and could not help but exclaim, "Oh my God! The temperature and pressure here are so terrifying. How would the human warriors in the Earth's core dare to move around here? Wouldn't they be burned to ashes and crushed into meat paste?" White Dragon smiled and explained, "Master's wife, the humans in the Earth's core have lived here for tens of thousands of years. They have long evolved and mutated. Of course, they can adapt to such an environment. Just like the cold and dark depths of the ocean, the pressure is also very strong. But those ordinary fish can still move around in the deep sea. They are not crushed into meat paste." Ji Ku glared at him and said, "Humph. You know so much. There's nothing you don't know." White Dragon smiled proudly and said, "Hee hee, of course. I am the one and only star of wisdom. If Master's wife has any questions in the future, feel free to ask me. I promise to explain everything clearly to you." Seeing how proud he was, Ji Ku frowned and stopped bickering with him. It was the same in her previous life. She had never won against White Dragon. At this moment, Ji Tianqing pointed at a black rock in the sea of lava and asked, "White Dragon, is that the place where the incident happened?" White Dragon hurriedly nodded and explained, "From here, it looks like a huge ore. But in reality, it is a small mountain buried in the lava. It is at least a few dozen miles wide." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "Let's go take a look." With that, he led White Dragon and Ji Ku and flew near the black ore. After a moment of close observation, he realized that it was just as White Dragon had said. It was an oval-shaped black rock mountain that was about 50 miles long. More than 70% of the black rock mountain structure was origin stones. The rest was made up of various metals and gems. If we refine this origin stone mine, we will definitely be able to obtain hundreds of millions of standard-sized origin stones, as well as many rare metals and gems. Previously, the amount of origin stones that we obtained from the Earth's core cave was not even 10% of this small mountain. This is a shocking amount of wealth and resources. Ji Tianqing could not help but exclaim. White Dragon also nodded in agreement. If we can move this small mountain of origin stones back, of course, that would be great. However, this small mountain of origin stones is not simple. Master, you should be careful. With that, he led Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku to the other side of the origin stone mine. Master, look. That is the mysterious black hole that I discovered. Ji Tianqing looked in the direction he was pointing. Indeed, he saw a black hole with a radius of 3 meters at the bottom of the origin stone mine. The entrance of the black hole was the same color as the mine. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to notice it. Ji Tianqing slowly approached the black hole and released his divine sense to explore it, carefully inspecting it. However, once his divine sense entered the black hole, it was swallowed by some kind of power. He could not detect the situation inside the hole at all. Interesting indeed. Ji Tianqing was interested. He revealed a look of anticipation and tried other methods. However, after spending 15 minutes and using 6 different divine techniques, he still could not detect the situation inside the black hole. The only thing he could be sure of was that there was indeed a divine-level formation inside the black hole. It constantly emitted powerful divine power waves. However, the divine power he released was completely swallowed the moment it entered the black hole. It did not cause any ripples. Ji Tianqing could not do anything for the time being. He could not move the entire origin stone mine. White Dragon and Ji Ku were also very anxious. They racked their brains to think of a solution. After a moment of silence, Ji Tianqing suddenly thought of an idea. He took out the Sword of Burial of Heaven. Now that the Sword of Burial of Heaven is a divine weapon made of origin stones, it should be effective. Chapter 25:17. After making up his mind, Ji Tianqing held the Sword of Burial of Heaven and dived into the black hole. As expected, the black hole did not release any mysterious devouring power and the Sword of Burial of Heaven was safe and sound. Therefore, Ji Tianqing released his divine power and instantly shot out dozens of sword gleams towards the formation in the black hole. Bang! 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 The powerful and violent sword gleams slammed onto the invisible barrier of the formation and a series of loud bangs were heard. In the blink of an eye, the sword gleams were shattered and the divine light fragments were devoured. Although his probing failed, Ji Tianqing was not discouraged. Instead, he saw hope. He began to use the Sword of Burial of Heaven as his eyes to observe the invisible formation in the black hole. Under the probing of the Sword of Burial of Heaven, the situation in the black hole quickly appeared in his mind. The two broken but intertwined formation veins quickly became clear. Ji Tianqing carefully observed for a long time. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, revealing a hint of surprise. Those two broken divine formations have surpassed the true God level and reached the heavenly God level. No wonder the black hole is so mysterious. It can block my divine consciousness and devour all divine power. Hearing his two sentences, Ji Ku and White Dragon were stunned for a moment, revealing an expression of disbelief. The five elements world is just a mortal world. How could there be a heavenly God-level formation? Could the ancient legends be true and there were many gods in this world tens of thousands of years ago? Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "Of course the ancient legends are true. There's too much evidence to prove it. What we need to consider now is not this problem but how to break the two broken formations." Bai Long frowned and said gloomily, "Master, isn't this too difficult? We're only virtual God level and those are heavenly God level formations." Ji Ku glanced at him and added, "Those are just two broken divine formations." Bai Long retorted, "Even if they're broken formations, they're still heavenly God level formations. How can we break them?" "Master's wife, others may not know what the heavenly God realm means, but how could you not know?" Ji Ku frowned and said unhappily, "Anyway, I believe in Brother Tianqing. He can do it." A bitter smile appeared on Bai Long's face as he shook his head. "Mistress, blind superstition is useless. No matter how heaven-defying Master is, it's impossible for him to break through a heavenly God's formation that's two major realms above him." While the two of them were bickering, Ji Tianqing ignored them and started trying to break the array. He roughly guessed that the two incomplete formations in the black hole were the 18-layer defense formation that had been popular in ancient times. The structure of this kind of divine formation was complicated and contained the mysteries of yin and yang, the five elements, light and darkness. Even an ordinary heavenly God powerhouse might not be able to successfully decipher it. In his previous life, Kenshin had spent his entire life studying the way of the sword. He didn't know much about formations, alchemy, or artifact forging. But even if he only spent his free time researching, he still became a top-notch master of formations, alchemy, and artificing, surpassing many god kings. Coincidentally, he had come across the 18-layer defense formation when he was flipping through an ancient book. Out of curiosity, he carefully read the layout and deciphering method of this kind of divine formation. Now that 1,000 years had passed and he had lived 2 lives, many of his memories were blurry. However, the sword god had an eidetic memory. The information about the 18-layer defense formation was imprinted in his divine soul memories. Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered for a long time before he finally found the relevant information from the vast sea of memories. He looked at the pitch-black hole with a serious expression. His left hand formed a seal while his right hand held the sword of burial of heaven, slowly releasing vast divine power. The brilliant golden divine power temporarily reached the level of a true god after being amplified by the sword of burial of heaven. Under Ji Tianqing's control, the dark golden divine power poured into the 2 incomplete formations like flowing water and started flowing slowly. Soon, 10 breaths passed. The 2 incomplete formations in the black hole finally reacted. Swoosh! Suddenly, the 2 incomplete formations lit up with a dazzling golden light and emitted a violent divine power fluctuation. Boom! A violent divine power shockwave burst out from the black hole and hit Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Bai Long hard. Fortunately, the 3 of them were strong enough. They were only pushed back a few steps and were not injured. Ji Ku and Bai Long were shocked. They looked at the black hole and the 2 glittering incomplete formations in disbelief. Wow! Wasn't Master too valiant? Those are heavenly god-level formations. If you really deciphered them, the coffins of those ancient god kings won't be able to hold on any longer. Martial gods were only virtual gods. There was a world of difference between true gods and heavenly gods. No matter how powerful a virtual god was, it was impossible for him to cast or decipher a heavenly god-level formation. This was a truth that the ancient gods recognized. If Ji Tianqing could really create a miracle, he would be the first person in history. Ji Ku was also excited. He said excitedly, "Xiao Bai, did you see that? I still believe that there's nothing in this world that can stop Brother Tianqing." Bai Long immediately changed his words and nodded. "Of course. Don't you know who my master is? He's a peerless divine king who dares to compete with the heavens. There's nothing in this world that my master can't do." Ji Ku glanced at him and smiled mockingly. TSK, that's not what you said earlier. You're such a fickle guy." Bai Long wasn't embarrassed at all. He said seriously, "That was a conservative estimate. Always prepare for the worst in advance. That's called being prudent. Moreover, I said that on purpose to stimulate my master's pride and fighting spirit. Only then can I help him create a miracle. How would you understand my good intentions?" Ji Ku glared at him and snorted disdainfully. "Humph. Steady and steady. Good intentions. You're not humble at all." The white dragon put on a humble smile and said, "I learned all this from my master. He was the one who trained me to be so outstanding." Ugh. "You're so shameless." Ji Ku rolled his eyes at him and pretended to vomit. The 2 of them were fighting happily, but Ji Tianqing was not affected at all. He focused on breaking the formation. Time passed quietly. Soon, 6 hours had passed. The 2 broken formations in the black hole were finally broken by Ji Tianqing and gradually disappeared. The invisible barrier and devouring force disappeared. The black hole was no longer mysterious and became ordinary. "Come, let's go in and take a look." Ji Tianqing stopped and stepped into the black hole with the sword of burial of heaven. Bai Long and Ji Ku quickly followed and looked around expectantly. The 3 of them entered the black hole and walked for 3,000 feet before entering the interior of the Origin Stone mine. A spacious cave with a radius of 20 miles appeared in front of the 3 of them. In the huge cave, the surroundings were pitch black and the air was dead silent. Bai Long waved his hand and released a ball of golden light. It floated in mid-air and illuminated the entire cave. As a result, an ancient and magnificent black stone palace suddenly appeared before the eyes of the 3 of them. End of chapter. Chapter 25:18. The palace was made entirely out of black stone. It occupied an area of more than 10 miles, and was unusually majestic. At first glance, it didn't look like a palace, but more like an ancient castle. The palace only had 2 floors, but it was more than 3,000 feet tall. Whether it was the stone gate of the palace, or the stairs and stone pillars in front of the door, they were all unexpectedly huge. Ji Tianqing and the other 2 only felt that this palace was probably not a place where human gods lived, but was built for giants. The square in front of the palace was already damaged beyond repair, and was full of holes and ditches. The walls of the palace were also cracked, and wide cracks and holes could be seen everywhere. Half of the palace on the right seemed to have been smashed by something heavy, and collapsed. Countless black stones fell down, piling up into a few small hills. In front of the palace's main door, there were a few broken, thick stone pillars on the ground. If one looked closely, they would find that the stone pillars and the black stone gate were carved with rough and simple patterns. They were filled with the rough aura of the ancient era. Ji Tianqing stared at the ancient palace, and said with certainty, "This is definitely an ancient palace. The aura of tens of thousands of years can't be faked." Bai Long hurriedly agreed and nodded, "Master, the architectural style of this palace is obviously from the ancient era, but it doesn't look like the work of a human god. From the layout and aura of the palace, it looks more like a cave or temple of a foreign god." Ji Ku frowned in confusion, and asked, "Why would a foreign god's temple be hidden in this origin stone mine? Could it be that in the distant ancient era, there used to be other races living in the sea of magma in the Earth's core?" Ji Tianqing nodded slightly, and said, "This is only our guess. We have to go into the palace to see the exact situation. I have a premonition that the secrets of the ancient times are hidden in this ancient temple." Bai Long raised his eyebrows, and muttered with interest, "A secret from the ancient era? What secret could there be? Could it be the cause and result of the Great War of the Gods? Or, could it be the original appearance of the 5 elements world? Master's wife, do you think it's possible, that in ancient times, the 5 elements world was the same as the God realm and the Dragon realm, they were all eternal main worlds? However, after the War of the Gods, or for some unknown reason, this world fell to become a mortal world?" Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku were both stunned for a moment. Then, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "White Dragon, where do you get all these weird ideas from? Little White, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you really dare to fantasize. But why don't you think about it? Isn't this too absurd? Main worlds like the God realm and the Dragon realm exist for eternity. How could they fall to become mortal worlds?" White Dragon also felt that it was a little nonsensical. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "Hee. I just had a sudden idea. However, we have to make bold assumptions and carefully verify them before we can uncover the truth of the universe." Seeing that he was about to spout nonsense again, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and interrupted him. "All right, let's go into the palace first and take a look." After saying that, he stepped across the messy and broken plaza and walked towards the main door of the palace. When they arrived at the black stone door that was 100 feet tall, Ji Tianqing looked up at the 2 tightly shut stone doors and carefully observed the patterns and array patterns on the doors. Ji Ku also stared at the door, looking for the seal array. Only White Dragon looked around and couldn't help but sigh. "Oh my God, the entire palace is made of origin stones. This is too extravagant. I've decided, as long as this palace is useless, I'll move it away." Ji Ku heard him and asked angrily, "Why are you moving it away? Are you going to break the palace into origin stones and keep it for yourself?" White Dragon rolled his eyes and quickly shook his head. He said righteously, "Master's wife, how could I be that kind of person? I'm moving the palace away because I want to renovate it and make it more beautiful. Then, I'll give it to Master as a residence for Master, Master's wife, and Master's wife to enjoy. If you live in a origin stone palace like this, you'll never lack cultivation resources. Ji Ku smiled playfully and said, "Humph, at least you have a conscience." At this moment, Ji Tianqing finished his observation and recognized the seal array on the stone door. He smiled. It's the 18 layers sealing array again. However, it's 3 divine arrays stacked together and there are 54 layers of restrictions. Fortunately, the palace has been around for a long time and the array was destroyed by brute force. Now, only 10% of its power is left. With the previous experience of breaking the array, Ji Tianqing did not hesitate to cast a spell to break the array. This time, his speed of breaking the formation was even faster. It only took him 4 hours to break the grand sealing formation. The white dragon walked to the door and pressed both of his palms on the stone door, bursting forth with unparalleled power. Ka 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 ka. 2 giant stone doors that were 1,000 feet tall and weighed more than 10 million pounds slowly opened to both sides. As soon as the stone doors opened a crack, a thick turbid air surged out from the darkness behind the door. It was the air current that had been sealed in the palace. After tens of thousands of years of precipitation, the turbid air had formed. It had a strong corrosive power. Ji Tianqing and the other 2 had divine power to protect their bodies. Naturally, they avoided the corrosion of the turbid air. When the door opened to 30 feet wide, White Dragon retracted his palms and made an inviting gesture. Master's wife, please." Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku stepped through the stone door side by side and entered the pitch-black palace. The 2 of them spread out their divine senses and saw that the hall, which was thousands of feet in radius, was unusually spacious. The black stone floor was full of cracks and covered in a thick layer of dust. In the center and 4 corners of the palace, there were more than 10 ancient and rough stone statues that had collapsed. At the head of the main hall in the north, there was a half-collapsed stone platform and a shattered throne. Seeing this scene, Ji Ku couldn't help but mutter, "The palace is a mess. It seems like there was a great battle here." Moreover, it was a battle between immortals. Ji Tianqing nodded. He raised his hand and shot out a beam of starlight into the palace's dome. In the next moment, the pitch-black dome was immediately lit up with densely packed silver light spots. Those light spots were like gems. They emitted dazzling starlight and immediately lit up the entire palace. White Dragon looked up at the dome and said with a smile, "It is indeed the heavenly cycle stellar formation. It is set up with 36,000 stars. This is the standard for a godly king expert to build a palace. Master, this palace is not ordinary. It is most likely the residence of a godly king expert. There is actually a godly king expert living in the core of the 5 elements realm. This is getting more and more interesting." Ji Tianqing only nodded and didn't say anything. He looked around and walked toward the upper left corner of the palace. There was a pile of shattered origin stones that piled up into a small mountain and covered a wide stone door. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.